Laws are going to have to be changed to keep pace with the new morality. They'll change or we'll have to break them.
What laws are we going to break? How about the ones about nature regarding the conjugal act? That's what's got to change. You got to change nature. It comes from the Vatican these days. And the reason why we have to change nature is because NFP dictates it. And if we get rid of NFP, the world ends. So we can't go there. This is why I say NFP outsmarted Timothy Gordon. He uses his towering bunch of words and stuff, and he's such an action figure or action theorist guy and blah, blah, blah. He can't go. He can't. I'm just looking at him, listening to what he says. Like, let's figure this out together. Okay. Anyway, we're going to talk about what he said when I got on his show, and then, slow it down for the average mortal to discern what he said or decipher. And you'll find that I think he just sort of covers up his 2 + 2 = 5 with big words and moves on. At any rate, the overall point was that NFP keeps you from thinking straight about nature, which is why it's the thing that's got to change. All right, let's get to the video. I know Tim really likes me. You can tell. Check this out.
Argue with Tim.
John,
today.
who's a good dude from Annulment Proof, is going to want to talk about, annulments and divorces the whole time. We can't do that, but we can't do that the whole time. But I'm one of these guys.
I'm a good dude. Okay, great. But I think I'm getting under his skin. All right, we're going to keep doing just that because it's too important to just kind of let this go. All right? All right, let's move to the next little clip here. By the way, I got monetized here. I think I've made about $26 in the last 2 years on YouTube. So I decided to try running these ads. Let me know if the ads freak you out or you don't care, or you're used to it or whatever. Go ahead, Tim. What's going on?
Annulment Proof, we're adding you in. Sorry, let me add you in here. And your time is starting at 7:29.
Cool. Hey, Tim, when I'm done, just go like this. Right away. Get this guy out of here. Next. I started my YouTube channel because of you. Basically, Timothy Gordon was the one guy I wanted to do he was the one I did my first response video to. Because he's so close to the target and he's just blowing it hardcore, man, because of all this unity stuff. But wait till we comb through what he says on this one. You're the one I did it for, because I need to do a response, so I'm all about the debate thing. And yeah, if the more we can talk, especially on Twitter, yeah. All right, more power. I have 19 questions, so I'll try to get to maybe 3.
Sure.
My first one is, Tim, you were saying that if you have a vasectomy before marriage and you get married, you can't do the conjugal act with your vasectomy. I've heard you say that.
It's the teaching of the church.
You can't do the conjugal act if you have a vasectomy. And he says that's the teaching of the church. All right. So he is exactly correct. However, if you ask anyone today, like the smarty pants people at the Catholic Institute for Catholic Ethics, Sexual Ethics, whatever, everyone says you can use your vasectomy. All you have to do is go to confession and then use your vasectomy, and it's all natural. But I'm jumping ahead of things. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, so
the applied action theory, yeah.
Again, he keeps talking about action theory. Like he's an action figure, needs the cape, whatever. Who's an action theorist? If you're not an action theorist, you can't catch on. You can't keep up with his action. I don't know. I can throw a rock. I can decide to cry if I get all sad. It's am I an action theorist? Could be. Maybe I am and don't know it. I may be more of an action theorist than I look. Right. Really? And the reason for that is because there's no true seed. You're effectively impotent. Okay, so this is why the church has always said castration, vasectomy equals no valid marriage. Why? Why is that? Oh, I don't know. Something to do with the primary purpose, meaning you have to act suitable for the generation of children, right? They cut off there's no seed there. They're not acts suitable for the generation of children. They're acts suitable for fill in the blank, but they're not suitable for the generation of children. That's why they're not Catholic. You can't do those acts. That's not natural. But it's no longer about the generation of children, is it? In fact, that might be a good time to look at the nice little picture behind me. This is the theology of the body cross. I don't know, have you ever seen that one? Look at that. Isn't that cool? It just, it's so weird. I'm going to talk a little more about it later. I was doing a little reading about it, but this is all this divinization of marriage, and the love of Christ is the love of spouses, and it must be perfect and all this stuff. That's because it's no longer the body, it's the self. Christ gave his entire self. Not just his body, but his total self. And you have to give your total self too. Therefore, you don't need the seed. You don't need the seed. You just need the self. Okay. And if the seed happens, fine. But if it doesn't, this is why vasectomy is now okay to use. All right. Anyway, let's get here. Oh, shoot. Let's get, okay, good. Go ahead.
It's a violation of nature to use your conjugal act if you have a vasectomy. Isn't that right?
No,
all right. No, it's a violation of nature to use your vasectomy in the conjugal act. Isn't that right, Tim? He says no, that's not right. So it's not a violation of nature to use your vasectomy in the current. Really? Yeah, that's what everybody says. And the reason why they're saying this is because NFP is effectively cutting off the seed. That's what you're doing. Okay. So why can't you cut off the seed any other way? Contraceptive or otherwise, homo or otherwise. Keep going.
Because you're removing like form and matter.
All right. So basically he's saying vasectomy isn't wrong because you're cutting off the seed. You can't make pregnancy. You're removing form and matter. So he's saying it's like contraception. Contraception is wrong not because it blocks babies, but because it's form and matter. He's saying that the conjugal act must have form and matter. Why? We don't know. Why does it matter if you don't have a certain telos all by itself, aka procreation? If they're acts suited for the generation of children, like in the contract, in the object of consent from the 17 code, then you would have to have the seed. But the contract, the object, that's like super old news. That's out, totally out. Now what we have is a covenant of love and self. So there's no terms to a contract. There's just a self gift. So you no longer have to have acts suitable for the generation of children. You have to have acts suitable for love. And a vasectomy can sure give you some love, as far as I hear, or whatever. Okay.
It's not the seed that matters.
It's not the seed that matters. Tim, baby. Okay, so everyone knows about, I think it's Pope Sixtus the Fifth. I was wondering if there'd ever be a Pope Sixtus the Sixth. So this is what I think that document he made, the papal bull in like the 1600s. He's like, hey, no seed, no violet, man. That's it, man. That's what everyone went on for a long time until we started to get into the love doctor legal phase at Vatican II. You don't need no stinking seed. You just need the love, my friend. Okay. Then everyone's like, wow. Okay.
That you're engaging in three parts of a human action.
Okay. This is where he starts getting too smart for his own good. We're going to get into some notes here in a minute. Let me check my phone, which is beeping like crazy. All right, we're fine. Let's keep going.
And each time you engage that, there's a reference back to a disorder. Each time engaging form and matter. It's not the seed that matters. It's that you're engaging in three parts of a human action.
So this is kind of where he starts talking. He gets it extra confusing that we don't need to. He's talking about three parts of a human action. Why? I don't know, but let's hear why. What is he talking about?
And each time you engage that, there's a reference back to a disordering of telos and eidos.
So he just said a huge mouthful of, I have no idea. It's a disordering of telos and eidos when you engage in the three whatevers. What? Okay, it's like, hello, can you use your vasectomy or not? Because why? And he says this stuff. So I started looking up telos, eidos, and all that. Let's just see. Let's see if we can get a better look at this. I'll put this all in the show notes so you can see it. All right, so I think I started looking up what this is. Telos and eidos. It's a couple twins, a couple Latin twins, right? Let me see, try to make it bigger. Just a minute. All right. He started saying something about a disorder of telos and eidos. The foundation concepts in ancient Greek. Okay. Eidos is the form or the essence of a thing, what it is, and telos is its purpose. Okay, so at the disciplinary level, the church changed its disciplinary view of whether or not consummation was a definitive to the... Okay, then he starts talking about quiddity. Hang on a second. Listen to this.
Okay, so if you do have
agree, right?
Sorry?
You agree, right? You're setting it up for a contrast, an argumentative contrast.
When you say anything Latin, I basically zone out because I can't think fast enough like you. I'm not as versed.
I'm just saying you agree that I'm guessing you agree with me that whatever the snip as these people call it.
Of course. No, yeah. It's always been that way. What I'm getting at is in 1977, the CDF says, okay, now we're going to call these marriages valid, whereas before 1977, a vasectomy marriage is invalid consent.
This is what a lot of people don't know. If you got married before 1977 and it turns out you had a vasectomy, that marriage is invalid. And after 1977, that marriage is valid. How is that so without changing nature? As I said in the beginning of the video, laws are going to have to change to keep pace with the new morality. So the new morality is love wins. And how are we going to change nature? Well, we just have to do our best to do backflips from theology of the body, like these people behind me here. They're going to have to change the telos from procreation, body, to self, of complete gift of all this, whatever, man. All right, continuing.
Now it's valid consent. Therefore, the vasectomy conjugal act is now in accord with nature, whereas before it was not. Have you heard that before?
What's a vasectomy marriage? I might not.
It's when you a vasectomy conjugal act, when you are consummating with a vasectomy, that was invalid until 1977. Now those marriages are valid.
Yeah, well, I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, a lot of people aren't aware of that. The 1977 change. It was just, it started in 1951 with NFP, and then it worked its way through. If we're going to do this, then we have to change all these other things. And that's something we cannot start saying vasectomy makes a marriage invalid because there's no seed if we're saying that it's nature to use the conjugal act to avoid the seed with the egg. So we've already, since we've changed the telos, we cannot exclude the vasectomy people or the castrated for that matter. That's why. That's it. That's all it is. And this is they're just giving the people what they want, but they have to. And again, I've said this 1,000 times. In Amoris Laetitia, Pope Francis is just being consistent. He's like, if gift of self is a private judgment, then so is divorce, then so is adultery. It's private. Okay, so you between you and God now. No, none of this public sin stuff. Adultery is a private deal. You follow your conscience. You just talk to your priest a lot and all that.
Well, I was aware at the disciplinary level that the church changed its disciplinary view on whether or not consummation was definitive to the quiddity of the perfection of the act.
Okay, no one knows what he just said. Whether or not the consummation was definitive to the quiddity of the act, I think, something like that. So I did write it down so we can go through it. Basically, I think what he's saying is it used to violate nature, but now we're saying that if you repent, it's okay. So you get the vasectomy, you repent, everything's good now. Now you can use the vasectomy in the marriage. It's like saying, it's the same thing with divorce, by the way. You used to get the divorce, you're blocked from communion until you remedy your divorce by moving back home or whatever you got to do like that, or you get a separation decree. But now you get the divorce, one-time confession. Oh, I committed sin and divorce. Okay, I'm really sorry. Then move on. That's it. You're done. It's not about nature anymore. However, we have that thorny problem of CCC 2384, which says divorce violates nature. You can't get around that. Can't get around that. Therefore, no divorce is in accord with natural law. None. 0%. I'm going to get into what kind of divorce they're talking about a little later in the notes. Let's go through some notes here real quick. Hang on. All right, cool. Okay. Disciplinary level, the church changed its disciplinary view on whether consummation was definitive to the quiddity of the perfection of the act. That's what Timothy Gordon said. At the disciplinary level, the church changed its discipline. So it didn't change nature. It just changed its discipline, whether consummation was definitive to the quiddity of the perfection of the act. In other words, is it essential? Do you have to, let's look up quiddity. I think I looked that up too. This sentence is using, okay, so I asked AI, what the heck did Timothy Gordon just say? This sentence is using a dense philosophical and theological language. In simpler English, it means the church changed its rules or official practice regarding whether ejaculation, completion of intercourse is what definitely makes a sexual act perfect or a complete sexual. The church changed its rules. Yes. Whether completion of intercourse. So that's right. They changed it from this. It has to be procreation primary to it has to be love primary. That's it. Okay, so everyone basically said this cum frequenter for centuries. That's Sixtus V, as he put it. It's like no true seed, no validity. Thomas Sanchez, eunuchs. Okay, it was the intention of the Pope to declare that marriage of eunuchs were invalid under any law, to pronounce them incapable of marriage because they cannot emit verum semen. That's it. That's it. Incapable of marriage. It doesn't invalid under any law. So you can't look. If you have no arms, you cannot be a pitcher in baseball, no matter, even if the Pope says you can. You can't. That's the way it is. This was written in 1945. That's it. Okay. What else do we got? Thus, for example, okay, so in all these cases at the Rhoda and stuff, the last decision being recently published in the ACTA, reasonable conclusion, permanently vasectomized man is also, in his mind of the Rhoda, impotent and capable of contracting a valid marriage. Okay. Permanently occluded. Yeah. Emission of semen. No. Permanent possibility. As a matter of fact, the Rhoda draws conclusions. So thus, 1920. Again, it makes no difference. This is the Rhoda in 1923. It makes no difference whether the passage of true semen is prevented by the surgical operation known as vasectomy or by some other cause as a result of an error. As long as the blockage is complete and curable. It makes no difference whether the passage of true semen is prevented by the surgical operation known as vasectomy. As long as the blockage is complete. Yeah. All right, so hang on a second. We don't care how you got it. If you don't have verum semen, it's gone. No way, can't get married. That's that. That's always the way it's been. Okay, I'll go on to this in a minute. Let's go back to Tim. Okay, so while we're here, this is pretty interesting. This is basically a super smarty pants Jesuit in 2006 admitting that there's a big problem when you start saying vasectomy is nature because you change the validity of marriage and then the tribunal doesn't know what to do. So what they do is they just sort of change the subject or kind of don't go there, which is, what's happening when you ask them certain questions about the definition of marriage. They just don't go. They can't touch it like MC Hammer. Now, let's read a little bit. From this guy from 2006, this super smart priest. I can barely understand what he says. I think he's even a notch or two above Tim Gordon level in complexity, but we'll do our best. Someone could argue, he says, a man, because the incapacity to ejaculate semen produced in the testicles has obtained by way of two concordant judgments a declaration of death. He got the annulment because he was incapable of the conjugal act via vasectomy, okay? As in no seed. Dig it? So he gets an annulment. Okay. of marriage is now in possession of the right to enter a new marriage. Okay, so look, he got annulled before 1977. And now it's 1978. Disco is hot and he wants to get remarried. Can he do so? Because he was just declared incapable of marriage last year, but now he is capable. If marriage is nature, nature doesn't change. How did that happen? That's kind of what I was trying to get to Tim Gordon about. You know, it's just like, we don't, instead of talking about quiddity and ergons and, you know, hey, just basic. Okay. It's a contradiction that can only be righted by saying procreation primary NFP is illegal. We don't dare do that. No way. No way. So what do? We kind of keep doubling down and throwing so much TOB and love at everybody that they just kind of like go, I don't know. So we're trying to use our brain. I was almost going to make the title of this video, NFP makes you stupid, but I didn't want to try to like insinuate that Timothy Gordon is dumb or something, because he's not. He's just blocked. He can't he cannot accept NFP as being unnatural. Therefore, he's got to do various cartwheels to keep his house of cards going. And he's got it from both sides, because the traditional people are like, what are you doing? And then the JP2 people are, and, you know, Christopher West people are like, what are you doing? So that's why his face gets a little bit distraught when it comes up. You know, it's not his thing, man. So his best line is like, oh, NFP doesn't exist. There you go. And then that was so funny when Father Ripperger goes, oh, yeah, that's right, it doesn't. Okay, so a tribunal can, therefore, and must remove him from the prohibition. Okay, so you weren't capable of marriage now because of nature, but you're capable of marriage now because of nature. Oh, got it. But this argumentation cannot be sustained. Why not? Because nature can't change. Oh, shoot. You mean like in the beginning of the video, we're going to have to change laws? We're going to have to change the rules because laws are going to have to change to keep up with the new morality? New morality equals new nature. JP2 insisted that the personalist norm was nature. And if personalist norm is nature, all the vasectomies in the world have no problem with that. Because it's life-giving love, not life-giving biology, which is actually what marriage is. That's why I said it right there. Ha. Okay. 4, by means of the same arguments and proofs which verify that a man is now impotent, it is also verified that he was not impotent when he celebrated marriage and that he is now restricted by the impediment of bond. Hold on a minute. That's just a fancy way of saying what I just said. Nature says you're impotent. And then after that time in May when the CDF said, no, vasectomy is valid for marriage, nature says you're not impotent. So can the definition of impotence change? Impotence of what? To make babies. Oh, I guess that's not what marriage is about, is it? It's kind of about like love and stuff. Because remember Dietrich von Hildebrand? Oh, he's the best. Dietrich. What about everyone at Ave Maria University and Steubenville? And okay, you don't want to mess that up. Yeah. All right. True. All right. For the tribunal in question can remove a prohibition only insofar as by examination of procedural acts. It verifies that incapacity of ejaculating testicular semen was the sole reason why the marriage was declared null. Why was his marriage before 1977 declared null? Why did he get that annulment? Because he could not complete the contractual agreement, which is the right over the perpetual and exclusive right over the body for acts which are of themselves suitable for the generation of children. Increase and multiply children. Can't do it. Can't get married because you can't do the contract because you have an incapacity. But moreover, this case, by virtue of a logical and ineluctable, that means undeniable connection, this case, by virtue of logic and an undeniable connection, at the same time is also verified that the marriage was valid, and therefore the man is in fact constrained by the impediment of the bond contracting. Okay, so what they're saying is, look, if you say he was invalid now, back then, but now if you say he was They're like, look, you can't have it both ways. That's all they're saying. He's either invalid before 77 and after 77, or he's valid before 77 and after 77. Which is it? We're not going to answer that question because that would expose the fact that we have, what did the guy say in the beginning of the video? We've changed the law to keep up with the new morality of love, which allows priestesses, homo priests, divorce, and then we can have our way with the divorced kids. That's the new morality. We have to change the law. And this is, like I said, why there's some prominent cardinal in Rome right now saying, hey, we got to get rid of this basis in natural law stuff, because natural law is like unchanging, and we need to grow, expand, and develop, and all that fun stuff. All right, so he's in a smarty pants way. He's basically saying, you guys can't have it both ways, but you are. Okay, yeah, National Catholic Bioethics Weekly Quarterly. Yeah, that was what this is in. I'm amazed because they're kind of pro vasectomy use. They think it's fine. You know, just pray about it and everything. It's on the video. The appropriate presuppositions be made to all the Christian faithful belongs to the right that their marriage case be admitted to a fresh examination. So what are they saying? They're like, hey, all you guys, all you people that had your marriage declared annulled, invalid because of the vasectomy. There's probably a heck of a lot of you in the USA that got the annulment in the 70s because you had a vasectomy, right? And we were not capable of marriage. Guess what? Now they're saying it actually does make you capable of marriage. So all those people can say, hey, I want my spouse back. Get him back here. Because now you're saying that vasectomy is in fact nature. So it says they have the right that their marriage case be admitted to a fresh examination. Yeah, that's right. Because you changed the rules. You didn't change the rules. You changed nature. You said the North Pole is actually the South Pole. Or you said the law of gravity has been suspended in Virginia and Vermont on Tuesdays. That's what you've done. You're like, oh, no, we didn't change anything. We've just developed our understanding into a new and deeper understanding of what gravity in Virginia and Ohio actually is on Tuesdays. Tuesday is a weird gravity day, and we know so much more now about gravity on Tuesdays that we've deepened our understanding. But we did not change the law of gravity. We just know it's not there on those days because we've developed. It's not a change. It's just it's a legitimate development of doctrine, okay? Blah, blah. Okay. So the promoter of justice, that's the guy who's supposed to judge separation cases, by the way. He's a lonely guy these days. They don't use him ever in the USA. Neither is it possible to accuse a marriage of nullity when this impediment exists in a spouse who has contracted another marriage after a previous marriage has been declared null due to an impediment of impotence, vasectomy, which impediment does not in fact exist. Okay, let me check that. Let me just kind of read that again. When this impediment exists in the spouse is contracted another marriage, when this is, okay, so if someone has a vasectomy, they get another marriage after the previous marriage was declared null due to the vasectomy, which does not exist, actually. The reason for the existence or non-existence of the impediment of the bond with respect to the second marriage depends on the existence or non-existence of the impediment. What they're saying is the same thing. If it's true before 1977, it has to be true after 1977. Natural law doesn't care about the 1970s. Natural law doesn't care what the Pope says. The law of gravity on Tuesdays in Virginia is independent of anything Donald Trump could say. Anything. It's going to do what it's going to do because God's in charge of the nature. So, does vasectomy invalidate consent or doesn't it? The answer is it does if procreation is primary, as in the essence, the independent object. Okay? But since today it's apparently not, or it's suspected as not, or it's treated as not, then get all the vasectomies you want. And if you can get a vasectomy and use it, Why can't you use plastic or anything else? Why not? Which is why everyone contracepts. If you can, that's why this is the obvious conclusion that the the Pontifical Birth Control Commission made in 1962. If you can do NFP, you can do AFP. It's only logical. So they have to do backflips. This is why Timothy Gordon earlier, he said, oh, no, vasectomy isn't wrong because it blocks the seed. It's wrong because you're taking the form and matter out. So in other words, it doesn't matter what the telos doesn't matter is what Timothy Gordon is saying. And by the way, here's the soundbite someone told me. I thought it was really good. If the object of consent is, if the primary purpose of marriage is subjective, it has no telos, there's no purpose. If it's subjective, it's like pointing a gun anywhere you want, and anywhere you want is the target, which can change. But if the purpose of marriage is objective, that is one target that's not moving. Okay, so anyhow, I just thought that was a good way of putting it. It's a subjective telos. That's what we have today. Because total gift of self. These people, it's subjective. They're giving themselves, okay? But we don't know what self is. She's like, I'm unhappy. He's like, I'll give you myself. And he's like, I'm unhappy. And she's like, you need to give me more of yourself, because she's the one who, by nature, fallen nature, wants to dominate him. And he's the one who, by fallen nature, wants to simp out. This is why theology of the body just makes matriarchy. That's all this is. Okay. What else do we got here? Similarly, if a woman having obtained a annulment before 1977 due to the incapacity of man, okay, because her husband got a vasectomy, so she gets the annulment, right? Enters a marriage after 1977, she can pursue two avenues in order to obtain release from this marriage. Either she can request a fresh examination. So look, yeah, you got a vasectomy annulment. Then you're in the new, then you get married, she gets married in the new thing, and she's like, you know what? It's 1984. This guy is not cutting it for me. I want out of here. So I'll just say, go redo my old marriage and declare it, declare that old annulment no good, because we know so much more now. We know so that vasectomy is actually natural, right? Or marriage is beyond nature. It's more than biology, right? More. Just like gravity is more than nature. It has a deep meaning, very deep meaning. Like when you're sinking in quicksand, that's a deep meaning. So she can either try to say, redo my old annulment so I can get out of this current marriage, or she can say, hey, the second marriage of nullity due to the impediment of bond. Oh, or she can say, look, the marriage I'm in is invalid because I'm really married to the past guy because the vasectomy. So either way, she can get out of it. That's the point. This is a big problem. On the other hand, certitude of nullity of the second marriage contracted by the healthy party is not present except insofar as it is verified that the other party, although judged to be impotent, is not impotent in fact. And indeed, in the case in hand, that verifiable according to the decree of sacred congregation, the doctrine of the faith, men who have undergone vasectomies and those in similar condition are not impotent. Okay. Thus, it is verifiable with a certain resting upon the authority of the decree that there exists a bond of a previous marriage entered into by such men, even though erroneously declared null by judges. Let me discern that. Just let me distill that just a minute. So he's just using fancy language to come out and say the decrees of nullity are error. You have to call them error. That's what you have to call them, and that's all there is to it. And you can do something about it if you want. That's it. We changed it. We were wrong. Move on. That's what's going on. And heck, man, if they get if they get NFP right, they're going to have to admit all these everyone's annulment and everyone's zillions of annulments are error. And they're going to be like, well, hey, we made a mistake. So sorry about your family getting trashed, man. But it's going to create a massive amount of work to be like, yeah, I want to fix my marriage. It's crazy. Okay. I am not unaware of how many pastoral and moral problems are bound up in the situations created because the ecclesiastical jurisprudence. Basically, it's like, I have no idea how much of a train wreck we have here because of all these stupid faking gay annulments that are granted after 77 because we said vasectomy is natural. Apply to certain teaching contrary to the cum frequenter from Sixtus, Pope Sixtus V in 1586. That's what, like I said, that's what everyone used. Everyone relied on that because procreation was primary. There's certain things in nature you kind of need for procreation to happen. You want a baby, you got to have certain stuff. But now we don't want a baby. We just want what these guys have right here. That's what we want, okay? Life-giving love, dude. Yeah. Okay, which decree now puts forward? But such problems will become yet more serious if, in resolving them, we do not apply the juridical principles which regulate the exercise of rights, capacity, pertaining to the determination. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so they have to do the hard thing. Yeah, regulate the exercise of rights. What rights? Are there rights in marriage? Is that what you're saying? No, there are no rights in marriage now because we cannot define what this is. We don't know this object of consent is love. You can't define it. It can't be adjudicated, nor can it be said, I have a right to love. It's all private now. So this is why they're not really big on rights. They're like, I have my rights. They're like, well, that's cool. Look here. What do I mean? Page 1357, the new commentary of canon law. It is impossible to make a listing of the rights and obligations that spouses have toward another. Okay. Therefore, consent to said rights is impossible. So look, one of these judges says the right to heterosexual acts, mutual respect and support, cohabitation and interpersonal relationship. Those are your legal rights. Give me my interpersonal relationship. Can't you tell how capable of interpersonal relationship I am? Oh, I'm not. Wait a minute. Maybe the problem's on your end. We don't know. Who's got the interpersonal relationship incapacity? Is it you? Is it me? Where's my mutual respect? Am I being disrespectful? Wait a minute. We don't know. We can't define it because all we're shooting for is this. Not a baby. A baby takes defined stuff to make. But this takes undefined stuff. So whatever helps this, hey man, if vasectomy helps this, yeah, you know what? I'm really feeling like I don't want any more kids. I'll get the vasectomy and then it violates nature to do it, but then I'll go to confession and then it's all better now. Just like divorce violates nature, but then I'll go to confession and it's all better now. No. Okay. We got more on that, but let's just go back to the video here. Continue. Go, Tim, go.
So whether or not you have a perfected marriage is based on like the ability to conjugate the marriage with.
Whether you have a perfected marriage is based on the ability to conjugate, to just do the act. But the act must not be impotent, physical impotence. And we have to define, we always defined impotence as true seed. Vacant. You don't have that. Otherwise, because it's just it's simple. Castration used to be okay. Or, excuse me, you can't get married with a castration, but now you can.
Sex,
right.
Not on the consummation itself.
Right. So it's always been if you do not have the ability to conjugate, if you have a castration or a vasectomy, you can't. But now
he's nodding up and down. You don't have the ability to conjugate if you have a castration or vasectomy.
Saying you can. And the reason why I theorize that they are saying that is because love is the new telos and procreation is no longer the telos.
There's no way around it. Annulment proof is right. That's it. They're just saying it plain, just calling a spade a spade. Love is the new telos. Life-giving love. The personalistic norm is the essence. Okay? Flower grows out of the ground. The ground doesn't grow out of the flower. So the ground comes first, and the flower is dependent on the ground. But the ground isn't dependent on the flower, okay? So what JP2 is saying is like, hey, marriage is the personalistic norm is like the ground, and the flower is the procreation. No. The procreation is how should I put this? The procreation is like the ground, I guess, and the flower is the personalistic norm. So you're always shooting for procreation, and if there happens to be some interpersonal going on in there, secondarily, love it. You know what I mean? Whatever, that's cool.
And that's why you can use your vasectomy, because you're not violating the significance. Okay,
that matters too. Look, Humanae Vitae. We have the unitive significance and the procreative significance. Marriage is a covenant, a sign. It's a sign, all right? So if marriage is a covenant, it's only a sign. And as long as the vasectomy doesn't violate the sign, we don't really know what's going on in there. It's just not violating the sign, right? Because it's just a significance.
Okay.
Now, I would counter you, and I would say that clearly a vasectomy can be reversed.
Makes no difference to the argument. Zero. Has nothing to do with it. If you can reverse your vasectomy, go ahead. Then you can use that vasectomy. Then marriage is fine. Go ahead and reverse your vasectomy. But if you don't reverse it, you can't use it. I don't know why I even brought that up.
So it might be void, but it might be voidable, but it's not void.
It might be voidable, but it's not void. I'm not exactly sure what he's talking about when he says it. I don't know. Let's keep going.
The distinction between
I guess that was what I wanted to just point out, because I don't know if you had an answer. Is what change? How could you change marriage from illicit to licit in 1977? How did you make the vasectomy in accord with nature? Effectively, that's what they did.
I don't think they're saying a vasectomy. The church wouldn't teach that as a human action, vasectomy is in accord with nature.
Yeah. Of course, vasectomy is not in accord with nature, but is using a vasectomy in accord with nature? The answer is no, but now after 1977, the answer is yes. This goes back to, is marriage an office of what? Nature. Is marriage an office of nature? Yes, it is, which is why a natural marriage and a sacramental marriage are identical, but one has grace. But they're identical in essence, what they are. Okay, it's right over the body. Hang on, I forgot where I was going with this. Just a minute. So yeah, not to obfuscate or confuse. Getting a vasectomy is always bad, no, wrong, bad. Always against nature. Using the vasectomy has always been against nature, but now it's not. So you can violate nature getting your vasectomy, but you can use it in accord with nature. That's the weird thing. That's what they're doing. And if I can use my unnatural vasectomy in accord with nature, I can use contraception in accord with nature. Why not? Why not? And then if I can use contraception, why the heck can't I use NFP? What's all this grave reason stuff? Anyway, that was another question I had for Timothy. Where does grave reason come from? Is it positive law? Is it divine law? Is it natural law? It came out of Pius XII's head, actually. That's where it came from, but we're not telling him that.
What the disciplinary is doing is maybe granting to folks that want to be married, that started out where the man was in a state of having a vasectomy, they're granting a kind of hardness of heart exception.
So what Tim's saying is, you got a vasectomy, but now you're going, look, I'm really sorry. It was really bad. What do I do? Just go to confession and use your vasectomy after you get home from confession. It's totally cool. All right. Therefore, marriage is no longer an office of nature. It's an office of love. Right there behind me. See that love, baby? Right there. That's what it's an office of now. Same thing with divorce. Like I say, divorce is a violation of nature. Oh, really? Yeah, but as long as you say you're sorry, you can continue violating the nature. How do you violate? Because like Matt Walsh says, divorce is worse than murder because it's like a perpetual death. It's worse than death of a parent. Divorce, because it keeps going. It's the gift that keeps on giving. If you're committing the sin of divorce and you repent of it, you have to stop doing the sin. Divorce is not a one-time thing. It is, you know what I mean? It's like if you illegally cross the border and then you go to confession for doing that, you don't get to just stay across. You got to go back.
At the level of discipline. So they're saying, well, your marriage might be voidable, but it's not ipso facto void. And
your marriage might be voidable, but it's not ipso fact. It's not for that by that fact void. Well, it was by that fact void before 1977, but now they're saying we're going to give you some love in a pastoral way, and we're going to let you go to confession and say that it's not void anymore. And like I say, the reason they can do this, like in the beginning of the video, we're going to have to change the law to keep up with the new morality. So we're changing the new morality is marriage is no longer an office of nature. It's an office of love. Therefore, we have to allow for violations of nature because it ain't about nature anymore. And when that's the case, it becomes about feminism or whatever you want. Whatever you want, fill in the blank. That's what marriage is. Marriage, the meaning of marriage is whatever you want. Who's to say otherwise? Are you going to judge my conscience? What I say marriage is? If you say marriage is about love, define love. We can't, remember we already checked that out? Look, what is marriage? It is impossible to make a listing of the rights. I have a right to love. What does that mean? We can't tell you what that means. It's the right to respect and interpersonal relationship. Okay? Can you demand that in a court of law? Give me my interpersonal relationship. No. All right. Keep going, Tim.
And I didn't even know this, that they did it. I buy that it's voidable rather than void.
He didn't even know that the decree in 1977 happened. A lot of people don't. But we know it now. The internet kind of promotes this. You can find stuff out. Wait, did he say? Let me go back again.
I buy that it's voidable rather than void.
It's voidable rather than void. How is it voidable? How can you get your annulment after a vasectomy if we've declared that vasectomy doesn't invalidate? No, you can't. You can say, I got a vasectomy. My marriage is invalid. Oh, really? Why? Because we've already declared all these marriages valid with a vasectomy, so why not you? No, it's not voidable. It's now nature. If marriage is nature, but marriage isn't nature anymore because NFP will not allow it to be. Tim, kind of what I'm trying to get the memo to you, man.
You know, not a fait accompli.
Okay, one more question, but before I do that, can you unblock me on YouTube? That would be my next request.
You did it. It's really good.
You unblocked me on X, and that's good. I appreciate that. Can we unblock me on YouTube also?
I'll try to figure out how to do that. That's a bit more tricky because I have to search, but I promise you I will look to see.
I would love to do that. Stephanie, you were my favorite account on X ever. Too bad you just, it was my favorite. I was like, where did she go? Okay, next question. Does a spouse have a right to unity?
Boy, oh boy. This is a little twister here for Tim. The answer is no. But if you define unity one of 27 different ways, you can answer the question any way you want.
What do you mean by unity?
What do you mean by unity? That was his pause in his answer. He's the one who keeps saying the conjugal act must be procreative and unitive. He says it. Timothy says it all day long because he's got to go with the JP. So I'm like, do you have a right to unity? And he says, what is unity? And I didn't answer it very well. I just kind of laughed at him. Let's see. Watch this.
Does a spouse...
I don't know.
Does a spouse have a right to sex?
No. A spouse has a right to the debt, has a right to the marital debt.
Yep.
But does a spouse have a legal right to unity?
Well, unity is mutually constitutive with sex.
Unity is mutually constitutive with the conjugal act. So unity it constitutes the conjugal act. So basically he's saying the conjugal act is automatically unitive, but we don't even talk about what unitive is. Let's go to the notes for a second. We'll get out. This is why I went back to try to go over what he said, because he just kind of throws out this stuff. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? Okay, let's find out what he says this. Let me see. Unitive, wherever. Okay. Hang on. Well, let's just read this part. We'll come back to what he said about unitive is constitutive of the act, because we'll get there. One flesh. Why don't we discuss that for a minute? Because this is what Tim is saying. Unity is one flesh. You've heard all this. You've heard this talk a lot, like one flesh union and all. They're basically saying it's the interpersonal relationship. So they're like, look, the Bible says you're one flesh. That means life-giving love. That means interpersonal relationship. That means unity. Duh, it's right there in the Bible. Da, da, da. Just like Protestants say it's in the Bible. A helpful analogy is okay, this is pretty good. I got this from AI. What does one flesh mean? A helpful analogy is someone can shake hands with many people, but only one handshake can accompany the signing of a lifelong contract. The handshake is real each time, but only one occurs per the contract that creates a lifelong legal bond, right? So even though you can become one flesh with a prostitute, it's not a lifelong one, because there was no legal bond there. There was no marriage there. So in Thomistic understanding, a man can become one flesh with a prostitute. In Thomistic understanding, that's Catholic. In other words, the Catholic Church teaches this because the Bible says it. A man can become one flesh with a hoe in the sense of bodily union. No. One flesh in that it's like you take two people and put them together, and they don't have two heads, 4 arms, and 4 legs. It's a new person, but it's not permanent because there's no marriage vows. He can later become one flesh with his wife in a fuller sense of bodily union, integrated into an exclusive lifelong marital covenant. So AI is totally full of theology of the body. I've said this before, the imprimatur, the magisterium of AI is PC all the way. So you really have to fight back on these guys, this thing. He can become one flesh in a permanent sense. That's all. And like I said, let's say you've seen monster movies or superheroes where they'll take like 2 people and put them together and it becomes one giant person. That's what marriage is. It doesn't have 2 heads, 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 hearts. No, it's one head. This is why one flesh. You don't fight. Your heart doesn't tell your head what to do. Your head tells your heart what. You know what I'm saying? People have to realize one flesh means one body. One head, and that's the guy. He has got to get it. Oh, wait, shoot. Someone's calling me. Just a minute. John, it's you. I'll talk to you. Hang on. Hey, John?
Is everything good?
Yeah, you're interrupting the video, so I'll push pause and we can talk, okay?
Yeah, give me a minute.
All right, hang on. I got to talk to John just a minute. I haven't been breaking rocks in the hot sun. I've been riding motorcycles all day in the hot sun. I am just wasted, but we got to see if we can pick up where we left off. Speaking of picking up things, I found this little nugget today. It's my new theology of the body crucifix. What is not to love? It's got the exact message right there. See these people behind me? They need to get this. This is way more direct. Let's get primary right now. Okay. What are we here for? Thank you. Okay. Now, let me see if I can figure out where the dickens we were. Hold on. Yeah, still trying to get serious about finishing this video. I have to take a nap and move a whole bunch of stuff to my new house. We're moving tomorrow morning. It's out of here. But I'm going to finish this first. So let me get some beauty sleep and I shall return. Okay, refreshed and revived. You know, I thought Timothy Gordon did another video recently where I wasn't in I'll have to do another video about this, but they saw this crucifix behind me, right? And they started talking about it. So I thought we might as well do a little explanation of this thing, because it's, let's see, I just did some reading about it, and I found something on the USCCB that kind of explains it. The late Pope understood the impact of sin on the human person. The fall brings about the series of ruptures within the person. Yeah, it does. And those ruptures, what that does is the The husband naturally, after the fall, wants to be a simp, and the wife naturally wants to be a feminist. That's what happens, okay? So she's going to take over, and he's going to want to give up if they follow the urges of the fall, okay? Radically diminishing the body's capacity to express reason and freedom. Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. It introduces alienation and a struggle for control. It introduces alienation and a struggle for control into the relationship of male and female. Yeah, I guess it would, wouldn't it? Yes, it would. Distorting their relationships in marriage and human society. No, it doesn't distort their relationships because someone's got to be in control. So that's what they're saying, that control distorts relationships. Wrong. No, but see, look at this. It's all about, there's the cross has a definition, the horizontal, the worldly, there it is, and the nail's right there. That's a definition, but this love thing isn't. There's no definite, it's kind of all over the place. It's in you, it's everywhere, it's been, okay. And it devastates human sexual drive, redirecting it from this is crazy. Redirecting it from an impulse toward life-giving, devastates the human sexual drive, redirecting it from an impulse toward life-giving interpersonal union. Oh, yes. See that life-giving interpersonal union right there? Between covenantal partners. That sounds downright Calvinistic. To the desire to use and exploit others for personal satisfaction. If you have self as the object of consent, then anything other than what other person wants is use. Okay, use. So if the other person doesn't want a baby, then you're just using them. And if the other person isn't requesting the debt, and if you request the debt, then you're using them. In other words, interpersonal union. So you give me what I want, and if you don't give me what I want, you're using me. If I want a baby and you don't, or if I don't want it, whatever. Point is that it's got to be. You have to be thinking about what the other person wants, or its use. That's what they're saying. This means that the body and procreation are completely out, and we have self and interpersonal is completely in. So that's why I say there's no more definition. Yet with death and resurrection of Christ, sin does not have the last word in the condition of the body. The grace this is just more poetry. Check this out. The grace that flows from the cross. Okay. And resurrection affects the redemption of the body. Wow, that's so deep I can't even figure it out. It affects a redemption of the body, but we're not saying what that is. It just says the grace affects a redemption of the body. But we're not going to say what that is. You can fill in the blank. Whatever you think the redemption of this is another way of saying we're kind of worshiping, because usually it's Christ on the cross. Usually it always is. But now we're putting ourselves there, and it's a way of, this is why Christopher West speaks of how the conjugal act must be divinized. And you're sort of divinizing yourself in a way, because it has to be infinite dignity and all this total self, right? Only Christ can give his total self. Everyone else get in line, or no way. Affects a redemption of the body, not just in heaven, but here and now. It affects a redemption here and now of the body. Oh, sounds like marriage is more than biology. Oh yeah, it's an interpersonal redemption through the healing effects of Christian prayer and sacramental worship. The healing effects. Boy, do I need healing. So we got to get these healing effects going, because I need interpersonal or something. The body is enabled to express the person and his or her ability to think and freely choose. Express the person because whatever. The expressive is enabled to express the person. What is the person? The person is basically my ego. No. If you couldn't say the word person, theology of the body would die. They say person every other word, seems like. Okay. The grace of Christ, it also enables men and women to overcome their mutual conflict. The grace of Christ enables women to overcome their mutual conflict. How does that happen? What if I have a conflict with the 10 Commandments? How do I overcome that? I'm not the 10 commandments aren't working for me. So we have a conflict and we need mutual interpersonal union here, God. So you gotta, hey, God, you gotta give me your total self. And that means if we need to change the 10 commandments in order to get interpersonal with me, then so be it. All right. So we got to stop this mutual conflict. If there's conflict between me and God, we got to stop it. Let me check my phone out just a minute.
Laws are going to have to be changed to keep pace with the new morality. They'll change or we'll have.
Anyway, mutual conflict, right? Yes. None of that. And live together in marriage in the exercise of mutual submission out of reverence for Christ. And live together in the marriage in the extra. Yes. Okay. Mutual submission out of. Okay. So this is why Timothy Gordon, we cannot have NFP because we have to have unity. And if we have to have unity, we cannot have conflict. We can't have conflict. And if we have someone who wants to control, then, or whatever, then that's conflict, right? Right. Just like we got 10 commandments. We got someone living in sin. We got a conflict. We cannot have that. So we have to come together, and I need to join Christ on the cross like this, and he needs to bend to me, and I need to bend to him so we can have unity. That's how this works. See, anyway, if you have marital debt, you have conflict, so we can't have that. And live together in marriage in the exercise of mutual submission out of reverence for Christ. Yeah. Everyone submits to Christ, but everyone has different roles. Duh. Okay. So the husband, yeah. You don't have two heads. Obvious, dumb, stupid. This transforming grace, isn't every grace transforming? Okay. This transforming grace enables the body in its maleness and femaleness to be offered as the expression of the sincere gift of self. Whoa, are we in trouble now? Okay. Oh, it enables the body to be offered as the expression. It doesn't have, I don't care how you express anything, because this is how they do this. Look, they're saying you're supposed to give your body, but no, we're going to express it as a sincere gift of self. And now we're going to say this expression of the body is the object of consent now. So it's no more, I get the body. It's like, let's say you go to this T-Mobile and you buy a little cell phone. You're no longer buying just the cell phone. You have to buy an expression of everything that the cell phone connects to in the entire world. That you have to also be able to deliver that expression. It's like, wait a minute. No, I don't. I didn't buy that. I just got the phone, right? It's just the body. Okay, so this sincere gift of self, and they take it legally. You can't. This is why everyone likes this thing, because when you get on the cross with her, she owns, she wins, because she has the most powerful feelings, and when push comes to shove, she wins because she's going to dominate and he's going to simp. It's just the nature after the fall. This is why this is a complete feminist setup. I didn't say that the best, but we can try to think of it more. I could probably do it better in the comment section. In a way of reflective. Okay, I got to let the dog in just a minute. Sincere gift of self in a way reflective. See, they're all expression, reflective. No, they're using these reflective expressions as law, just like significance. It is now nature. Reflective of the person's vocation. There's that word person again. Vocation as a single, married, or consecrated. Look. So they're equalizing it all. It's not a vocation to want to reproduce. That's like nature. That's all it is. It's not a vocation. It's a natural state, natural calling, not a supernatural calling. So there's that. Anyway, that's a little of what's going on with that picture. Let's get to where we were earlier in the video. Oh, shoot, I messed this up. It's hard.
Laws are going to have to be changed to keep pace with the new morality. They'll change or we'll have to break them.
I have no idea why that thing keeps jumping in. It's great. Sorry, man. I'm going to have to fix that. Sorry. I get interrupted so much when I do these videos because of where I'm living with all the tires and all the people and all the stuff. I can't tell when I'm pushing pause or record. Half the time I've recorded part of the video, I'm like, I was doing it the whole time on pause. I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. It's nuts. Anyway, I just finished. I think what I did was I cut myself off when I finished talking about the cross and everything. It's in the show notes. Sorry, I guess we missed that part. Let's go back. We're doing a little Timothy Gordon. I think I actually forgot to hit record on some of this, but let's see what he says.
So that
Let me go back a little bit.
Constitutive. Does a spouse have a right to sex?
Okay,
No. A spouse has a right to the debt, has a right
We already
to the
kind of
marital
talked about
debt.
this. Yeah.
But does a spouse have a legal right to unity?
Well, unity is mutually constitutive with sex. It comes from that passage in Scripture that says you become one flesh, unity.
So when people want to hide their unity, they'll just say, well, unity is just the physical act, or unity is the one flesh. It's in the Bible. Therefore, unity is a real purpose, right? That's not what they mean. What they mean by unity is what we just said, what we just talked about back here. Hopefully I didn't record over it. This part right here. Oh, shoot. I got to find it. It's up near the top. Okay. It's right up here. We just went through it. And I think I was talking the whole time and I was on pause because I kept getting so many people showing up here talking, wanting me. Can't speak English. Whatever. Man. All right. Transforming grace enables the body of maleness and female to sincere gift of self. Yes. So basically, like I said, there's conflict, all this stuff. We're talking two people in a room. There's going to be conflict, and there can't be conflict anymore. This is why there must be unity, which means not what I want, not what she wants, but what we both want together. So no one's in charge. There is no objective truth on things. There's just unity. That's why I said before, and I don't know if I got recorded or not. If I have a problem with conflict with the 10 Commandments, God needs to meet me in the middle. We both need to meet in the middle and come together. So God needs to get a little gel with me on these 10 Commandments. It's a little bit harsh. It's a little bit dogmatic. He's using me and he's exploiting me, and I need to feel some unity with God. Okay, so this is how this works. A certain redemption. I thought I did pretty good on this, but I don't even know if it's on this video. We got to keep going. Anyway, you can read about it here. It's in the show notes, and they're basically giving a bunch of baloney as to, again, they talk about expression. It's the expression, the sincere gift of self is a way of reflective the person's vocation. Bunch of baloney. Again, I don't even know if I even talked to you about that, but let's find what Timothy Gordon, what we can say about one flesh. Here we go. So what does one flesh mean anyway? Okay. I think this could be, if I didn't already talk about this could be from, I think it's AI. Helpful analogy is someone shakes hands with many people. Yeah, I think I already talked about this early in the video. A handshake is real, but only with a lifelong legal bond is it permanent, as in with marriage. So he can become one flesh with the prostitute. You can be one flesh with your wife in the fuller. Yeah, I think we already talked about that. Okay, the natural effect. This is why Aquinas distinguishes between the natural effect of the conjugal act, bodily union, and the sacramental and juridical reality of marriage, the permanent bond created by consent and perfection of consummation. The first can occur without the second, but the second includes the first but is not reducible to. Let me think about that. Hold on here. Yeah, they're just saying that if you're going to be one flesh with your spouse, you got to have you got to have the marriage. That's all it's saying. Okay. There's more of a vasectomy talk back there, but let's go back to Timothy Gordon and hear what he's got to say about this one flesh thing.
You want.
Okay, so that
they're mutually constitutive. So yeah, I would say yes. Sure.
Okay, so what is the legal definition? If I request my right to unity, and I say, give me the unity, what is the unity?
This is what he doesn't want to talk about. Let's see what he says.
What is unity?
Unity is, I'm not
have the right to it, yeah.
Unity is the intelligible part, the formal intelligible part of the one body that comes together during coitus, the sexual act. Yeah, we'll give him an extra. We won't count
the formal blah blah blah. Hold on, let's unpack that. Okay, but before we unpack what he said, I'm going to finish a little bit of what EWTN said about vasectomy. Okay, they say Okay, this is why we are now saying vasectomy is natural. Like I said, just like divorce, you just needed to repent of your divorce and you're fine. You don't need to actually live your marriage vows at that point. You don't have to live together. And now same with vasectomy. You can get a vasectomy and then you just have to repent and you're fine. You can use your vasectomy just like you can use your divorce. Okay, having repented of vasectomy, the conjugal acts remain open to life. This is why open to life is not Catholic. It has to be oriented toward life, okay? So the conjugal acts remain open to life, as in, i.e. marital. So the contraception is open to life, okay? Insofar as they are chosen in a human manner. I asked him about this. He didn't know about the human manner part either. Chosen in a human manner. What is choosing a conjugal act in a human manner? Anyone? And are per se apt for the generation of children. So we used to have one purpose, one telos, generation of children, but now there's two teloses, human manner, because of infinite dignity and interpersonal respect and blah, blah. All right. So they are chosen in a human manner, and this is the baseline. This is the personalist norm, the human manner. And what does that mean? What does human manner mean legally? It means unity. It means you can't say I have a right to the debt because that's not unifying. That we both have to want the conjugal act in the same way at the same time, or it's not unifying. And we have to be unified, just like Christ and his church are unified. Everything's groovy, right? All right. Okay. Although the condition of sterility may make such generation impossible, or at least unlikely, may make such generation impossible. The act chosen in the human way, insofar as it's chosen freely, as in not a result of physical or moral coercion. Get away from me with your moral coercion. Are you saying, Timothy Gordon, that someone has to pay the debt? If you're requesting the marital debt, someone has to pay it. And if I don't, I'm going to hell. That's what you say. That sounds like moral coercion. It has to be free. Respect the freedom of the gift, my bro, because it has to be unitive. It has to be in a human manner. Hey, Timothy Gordon, are you rejecting canon law? It's got to be in a human manner right here. What are you talking about? That means no moral coercion. That means it's got to be unifying a human way. Are you telling me I'm just an animal and I have to do this because of instinct? It's human. No, we have to be like this together. See? Okay. That's why vasectomy is fine, because it's no longer just generation. Even if generation is impossible, it's all about the human manner, interpersonal. Number one, love wins. Number one. Got to have that first. Essential. Personalistic norm. Hello, Dietrich von Hildebrand. There it is right there, the EWTN thing. This is boilerplate status quo USCCB JP2 stuff. So Timothy Gordon kind of wants it both ways, because he's saying you don't you hang on, let me think of why I'm saying this just a minute. This is something I wrote in a comment on YouTube on one of his videos. I wrote, if procreation is primary, then self-gift is secondary. Thus, all planning is forbidden, okay? Because you just have to have kids. That's what you have to do. But Timothy Gordon wants procreation primary, like he says, but he also wants planning to be natural, which means that self-gift is primary and procreation is secondary. So you can't have it both ways. You either have to have procreation primary and no family planning, or you have to have self-gift is primary and family planning is fine. But you can't have procreation primary and NFP is natural. It can't work. All right, let's go back to the video, I guess. Go ahead.
Second question, so we'll give him another minute. So, okay. So you're saying that the telos of sex is love and the ergon is unity. No, for
the telos is, what did he say? Go ahead.
Okay. So you're saying that the telos of sex is love.
That is what JP2 says, Dietrich von Hildebrand says, and necessarily everyone else says who says NFP is nature. Because if the natural purpose of the conjugal act isn't procreation because you're planning to not get pregnant, then it's love or whatever.
And the ergon is unity. No.
The ergon is unity. I got to go back and figure out what ergon is. I can't ever remember. Hold on. All right. Backing up a little bit, Timothy Gordon says, this is what he said a few minutes ago. Remember, unity is the formal, intelligible part of the one body that comes together during coitus. I mean, I can't even figure that out. Is the formal intelligible. So I asked ChatGPT, what does that mean? Help us out with Tim Gordon. If, however, you're developing a metaphysical account, it would be better to avoid calling unity the formal part of the body. In Thomism, form is a precise metaphysical meaning that doesn't map neatly into relational. You see, all this gets so complicated, and you're like, believe me when I say this, and I'm just going to bury you in philosophical terms and metaphysical terms. It would be more accurate to describe unity as the formal aspect or intelligible principle of the one flesh relation rather than the substantial form of a new body. Okay. So they're saying aspect, as in something it appears to be. It's not actually a form of a new body. It's like an aspect. Whatever. It's not a purpose. Unity is not a purpose of the conjugal act. It's just another way of saying secondary ends, which is mutual help and remedy of concupiscence. Those are purposes, and this gets super confusing because once you start saying one flesh union, one flesh, union can be any one of things that you want, and some of it's legitimate, some of it's not. It's like calling this thing right here a dollar bill. We can call it that, and I can have a dollar bill, an actual dollar bill, and we'll call that a dollar bill. And we'll just exchange them all over the place. And it's like, no, this is truly a dollar bill in a certain ways, a certain aspect. And you're like, it's totally retarded. And everyone's like, I don't care. I don't want to have 15 kids. All right. So the ergon, because he likes the ergon, the sexual faculty is the characteristic activities. Okay. So the ergon, I guess, is like how babies are made, where, the physical part. I guess that's the ergon, and the telos is the purpose. Why we have to talk about ergon, it just makes I don't even know. It's like, ergon, dude, that's a weird ergon. Oh, just give me a break. It's the physical thing, okay? Thank you. Now, thus, coitus is not the telos. Yes, the ergon, the characteristic act. The telos lie in the goods to what the good, naturally ordered. Okay. Think of archery. Ergon is drawing the bow and shooting the arrow. Telos is hitting the target. Why are we even talking about all this stupid stuff? Because Timothy Gordon keeps talking about it, and when he says it, it's just like he throws smoke bombs and runs away, and by the time the smoke clears, the video's over and he's gone to the next thing. That's why they do this. That's why we're going through it and getting our fan, blowing all the smoke away and trying to figure it out. Let's go back and listen to what he says.
For the marital act, sex done properly, the telos is procreation.
The conjugal act done properly. What's the improper? Okay, there's no reason to say it. It's like eating a hamburger eaten properly. What are you talking? So this is why we don't know exactly what he means, because he has to mean in a unitive way, just like the people on the cross behind me. Hang on, let's go back a little bit.
Marital act, sex done properly, the telos is procreation, always has been, always will be, and the ergon is.
Wait a minute. Sorry, we'll
part of the intelligible part, the formal intelligible part of the one body that comes together during coitus, the sexual act. Yeah, we'll give him an extra. We won't count the second question, so we'll give him another minute. Mm-hmm. So okay, so you're saying that the telos of sex is love and the ergon is unity. No, for the marital act, sex.
The ergon is unity. That's so stupid. The ergon of eating a hamburger is not putting it in your mouth and biting on it. That's not the ergon. It's like, forget this ergon stuff. You're just complicating it all. And
sex done properly, the telos is procreation, always has been, always will be, and the ergon is unity, who's intelligible.
The ergon of the conjugal act is unity. The ergon of the conjugal act is unity. So the ergon of shooting an arrow is pulling back the thing, and then the telos is the target. What you're telling, So the ergon of the conjugal act is unity. I guess what he's saying is unity is the physical nuts and bolts coming together. Okay, so if that's like saying the purpose of eating a hamburger is nutrition, but it must be unitive also. You have to unite with the hamburger. You have to have hamburger unity. Move over, hamburger helper. We'll have hamburger. Yeah, hamburger unity has to unite with your mouth. The ergon. This is why we have to discuss the quiddity qua ergon of the hamburger, right? And it's got to be like it's got to have that ergon's got to be in your mouth, right? Otherwise, it's not unitive. So dumb.
Part is love.
What part is love? Hold on.
Love. Telos is procreation, always has been, always will be. And the ergon is unity, whose intelligible part is love.
The ergon of the conjugal act is unity. The way it gets done, the nuts and bolts, the physical part, that's unity, and the what is love?
Always will be. And the ergon is unity, whose intelligible part is love.
Whose intelligible part. Intelligible. I don't even know exactly what intelligible part means. I don't even want to look it up anymore. But the intelligible part. Okay, so he's saying that there must be love in order to have a conjugal act, because that's the intelligible part or something. You have to have love in order to have your ergon of conjugal act. The nuts and bolts, the thing that makes the baby, you got to have love. Have to have love. Because that's intelligible. Otherwise, it's not intelligible without love. How much love? What kind of love? Who, because we have to have this cross effect. This is this total gift of self. We cannot have marital debt isn't love, Tim. Just like it's conflict. It's fight for control, like we talked about earlier. That's what it is. You just said love was intelligible to the conjugal act. And it's part of confusing, weird. That's why I didn't really get into it with him here, because I don't have time. I'm at his mercy when I'm on his show. There's only so much time, so we're doing it right now.
It's designated as love. That's the intelligible part. So,
okay,
what about the difference between a formal cause and a final cause? And
now see more smoke bomb. Blah blah blah. The difference between a final cause and I don't know about final causes and formal causes. I just know where babies come from, and I just know the purpose of that act. And it just gets me more confused to have to look up final cause and formal cause. Why do we care?
You're reversing them.
Oh, you're reversing the final cause and the formal cause. I am. How is that? I don't even exactly. Let me see if I took notes on final and formal cause. Just because. Hold on. Okay, it turns out I did take notes. Oh boy, in Aristotelian philosophy, which is what Timothy Gordon, he's an action theorist, by the way. He's a Thomist, and he's an action theorist. In case you forgot, he's an action theorist, man. Total action. A formal cause is the structure or blueprint of an object, what it is, while the final cause is the purpose. Okay, why do we even need to talk about this? But he brought it up, so we've got to know. Otherwise, it just be like, I know formal cause, final cause, ergon, telos, quiddity, and you don't, so bye. Okay? Why it exists. A knife, the formal cause is its shape and blade and handle. Its final cause is its cutting. It sounds obvious. Why do we care that much? Why does this have to be talked about? Why is where babies come from and the purpose of marriage totally confusing if you don't know all about final causes? You don't. It's just a way to confuse things. Tim Gordon, the ergon of sex is unity. This is his direct quote, which we just heard. Whose intelligible part is designated as love. So I asked ChatGPT, what the dickens did Tim just say? Okay, he's ChatGPT. So if love is the intelligible form of marital unity, the required love is the kind of willing love that corresponds to a permanent self-giving union of spouses. Boom! Timothy Gordon, you just convicted yourself of feminism. You better get one of these little love crosses for your house, dog. Or better yet, this one's a little bit easier to understand. We need to work on our easy to understand. Come on, man. Come on. All right. So, yeah. Permanent self-giving union. None of this permanent self-giving body. Union of spouses. That's another. I've said this before. Even Michael Knoll says marriage is the union of man and woman for the procreation of children. That's more weasel words right there. It's not, when you say union, you put whatever you want in union. Look at this, permanent self-giving union. So it is not a body-giving union. It's a self-giving. Once you say union, you're dead, because you can just put whatever you want in union. Just like this is $1. If I say it's $1 because I can, it's $1. It's called $1 elsewhere in different places, or it symbolizes $1, or it has been known to be worth $1 in certain places in the Bible. So this is now $1, and this paper thing is $1, and we get it all confused. Now we get to talk about ergons and teloses of this thing till the cows come home, and everyone's like, Tim Gordon, because two substantial. Okay, we're going to go on in the video. Let's keep going. We got that covered, I hope, sort of.
So there is no contrary right to the right over the body, because this is what effectively is going on today. They'll say, look, it's you can't separate unity from procreation, because that's what Humanae Vitae says, the unitive and procreative significance.
Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say about that. You can't separate unity from procreation, the unitive and procreative significance, but can you separate the unitive and procreative purpose? No one will say. In fact, it doesn't make any difference, because purposes are like so last week. Purposes have to do with nature. Those are bound by nature. But we know that marriage is much more than biology. We know that it's a total self-gift. It's not. This isn't about biology anymore. It's self-gift, okay?
And when you come at me with marital debt, I'll just come back and say, that's not unitive. I have a right to unity. So thanks for your marital debt ideas. That's nice. But we have a new law in town now. It's called the right to unity. Have you heard anyone suggest that before?
I don't know. Is that like a...
I don't know. That's the obvious conclusion to NFP, because the natural telos of NFP is not procreation. It's you're shooting for something else. The ergon is drawing the arrow back, and the telos is the target. If I'm trying to get pregnant, I'm shooting at the target. But if I'm not trying to get pregnant, I'm not shooting at the target, the telos. I found a new telos. It's called whatever you want to call it. Call it bonding. Call it interpersonal. Call it unity. That's what we do. Yeah, man, this is unity right here. Is this what I'm calling it? Unity, because others have called it unity before, right? We call it unity. You can call it unity whatever you want, as long as it's not a baby. It's unity.
Christopher West idea, because remember,
yeah, but it's also your bishop. It's every bishop.
But that's wrong. So,
okay, sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
That I'm not a representative of that view.
You are, Tim. Sorry, you are. If you say NFP is natural, and you are not shooting for the telos, you're shooting for something else, which means the second telos is nature, and now that nature is self-gift, unity, whatever you want to call it. And that's, you can't get, you just because you say that ain't me, man. It is you, man.
Remember, because this is the first thing you learn in metaphysics when you're doing real hard Thomistic metaphysics.
Okay, see, now we're going to start getting in. He's going to just go, and he's going to throw more smoke bombs down. I don't know if he intends to do this or what, but it's like, look, annulment proof. I'm going to try to give you. I'm just going to try to give you, spoon feed you some philosophy here, because you don't know what you're talking about. So let me go. Go, Tim. Go.
Is because two substances or substantial concepts are separable. Let me say this: separable conceptually. They're not necessarily separable ontologically.
And now I'm sitting here thinking to myself, what do we even why are we talking about this? Why does this matter so much? Let's ask ChatGPT why it matters so much. I bet you I did already and put it in the notes. Let's see. Okay. Oh, look at that. It sure did. Sure did. Okay, Tim, because two substantial concepts are separable conceptually, they're not necessarily separable ontologically. Whatever. I guess I never asked ChatGPT what that means. I don't even quite know what it means. I don't even know what ontologically means. Do I have to know? I guess I could figure it out. But anyway, I do know that this statement happened, Paul VI to the Rhoda in 1976. Marriage exists independently of love. So they're not necessarily separable ontologically. I think ontologically means, let me look it up real quick. I don't even know what it means. Hold on a minute. Okay, I looked it up. So ontologically means means relating to the philosophical study of being, existence, and reality. So Timothy Gordon says, because two substantial concepts are separable conceptually, they're not necessarily separable ontologically in reality, in being. So he's saying that you can talk about love separate from the conjugal act, but they have to be together in reality. I think that's what he's saying. But Paul VI tried to put the toothpaste back in the tube with all the crazy stuff going on that was unleashed, particularly by Humanae Vitae. It says marriage exists independently of love, but we don't. Too bad. It's too late. Everything was already trashed by that point, and it took off. All right, let's go back to L video.
So we can separate the idea of the formal cause of sex, which is love, unity, right?
The formal cause of the conjugal act is love and unity. The formal cause. Really, that's the formal cause. Okay. The formal cause is love and unity of the conjugal act. That's what he says. The organization of those powers in a male-female union ordered to conjugal goods, permanence, exclusivity, procreation. So the organization of those powers. Material cause is the bodily powers, the organs involved. Yeah, the formal cause is the organization of those powers. So I guess you decide to this. It's too stupid. There's no need to go into all this. It's just more like sideshow stuff. He says love and unity is both there every time you do the act. Is it? Does that mean it's does that mean that but a conjugal act has to be done in a human manner. So maybe they're not both there. It has to be human, because that's canon law right now. It must be done not just in a procreative manner, but it has to be done in a human and procreative manner, Tim. So maybe all this love unity stuff, like these people behind me, isn't always there automatically. We have to use the sacraments and the covenant and all this groovy stuff and pray a whole bunch so that we conform ourselves to the 10 Commandments, and we take and God takes the 10 Commandments and conforms them to us. So, a little bit of this, that's how we get the unity, mutual submission. God needs to submit to me, and I need to submit to God. This is how we get mutual, all right? What's wrong with artificial contraception? There's plenty of love in the room, okay, and it's open to life because the telos is always there. There's always a possibility, okay? Why is contraception, a contraceptive conjugal act, missing one of those pieces? There's love, there's procreation in all of it. Tim, you can't, what? Hello? So I cut him off too quick, but he's basically saying, no, this is just old rules about the way that we used to try to become more penitential at certain times of year, which is completely wrong. No, but let's keep going. So this is why there's not enough time to talk about this. Let's look into this black fast business real quick and what he's talking about. If everyone hasn't figured it out yet, let's look at what St. Thomas Aquinas says, because like Timothy Gordon says, always quote Aquinas. You're not smarter than Aquinas, so quote him. All right, let's do that. So Aquinas, first is black fast business. No, that was just discipline. You used to have to no water or food from midnight Saturday night because you go to Mass Sunday morning. But that can change. Just like during Lent, there would be restrictions on the conjugal act, that kind of stuff. That can change. But so he, in the video, I was trying to say this has to do with nature. It has nothing to do with discipline. He's like, no, because we didn't have time to explain it. Aquinas, I answer that it was forbidden in the law, to approach a menstruous woman for two reasons. Not one, but two reasons on account of her unclean. So in the old law, yeah, it was unclean, and on account of the harm that frequently resulted to the offspring from such intercourse. Okay, if you're pregnant, you're not having a menstruous woman. Therefore, what offspring are hurt from intercourse at that time? What offspring? There's no offspring. The answer is sin. This is sin. You're violating nature because you are pursuing not procreation. You're pursuing something else. And the sin gets visited on the kids. That's the hurt of the... So, you know, back then it was leprosy, or it could be who knows what, maybe Down syndrome. I don't know. Different things, different stuff. Okay. I don't know. I don't want to say that about Down syndrome, but you never know. You just never know. The problems. Okay. And St. Hildegard of Bingen said the same thing. You hurt your kids. If you're doing the conjugal act when she's pregnant, you're hurting the kids. Not physically, but you're visiting sin upon them because your act is sinful. If it's not for remedy of concupiscence only, you know, it's just not cool, basically. With regard to the first reason, it was a ceremonial precept. That can change, Tim. You're exactly right. With regard to the second reason, it is a moral precept. That cannot change, Tim. Okay, you didn't know this. I guess you didn't want to know this. For since marriage is chiefly directed to the good of offspring, that means not to their welfare per se, but to produce kids. That is the purpose, the telos. All use of marriage is intended for the good of offspring is an order. Consequently, this precept is binding even in the new law, Tim. This precept is binding even in the new law, Tim. That's Aquinas. He's your man. You're an Aquinas bro to the max. There it is right there. You just said the precept against relations during that time is old news. No, it's not. It's permanent. On account of the second reason, although not on account of the first, because of moral reasons, okay? When the woman is subject to a natural issue of menstruum, she can conceive. Yeah, it's possible. But it's sort of the body advertising that it ain't happening. Moreover, the said issue lasts only a short time, wherefore it is forbidden to approach her. In like manner, a woman is forbidden to ask for the debt during this period of that issue. So, but he also goes on to explain that if she knows what's going on, so she shouldn't be asking for the debt at all unless she has remedy of concupiscence at that time, which is like super like unheard of, I guess. But for the guy, he might, and so she tries to talk him out of it. But he does have a right to remedy of concupiscence, and it's not. It's a 1 Corinthians 7:6. It's an indulgence. It's not meritorious because you're not trying to have a baby. You're just like, okay. It's sort of like if you really need to eat good food because you're trying to work is different than having just mainlining whipped cream after you've already eaten 5 cheesecakes like that. That's kind of like an indulgence. It's not necessarily sinful. You're allowed to do that. It's just not. It might even be sinful, actually. Speaking of, I heard something kind of interesting about smoking. So I think it was on Michael Knowles. I was saying, is smoking sinful? And the exorcist priest they were talking to said, yeah, it's a venial sin. But it also can be good because it lowers stress, depending. So I think it kind of depends, just like your use of canned whipped cream depends, all right? So there's that. We'll come back to that. Let's go back to finish this video for a minute. Go ahead.
Let's cut me off. But I do want to try to follow up on X or YouTube with some of this because it is important rather than just a quick thing and bye-bye. This stuff matters, and I think you're wrong about it. And if you're up for talking, that's good.
How is okay, thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks, John.
How would the
all right. I got to eat dinner and do some prayers. I'll come back in a sec. Hold on to thine horses. So let's finish up a little of this during menses stuff and Aquinas. Okay. A little AI here, modern theological perspectives. While Aquinas' strictly transactional view of the marital debt, that's the Catholic view, because that's what it is. It's strictly transactional. That's it. It is. Yeah, it's called the restricted sense, the legal sense, not warm and fuzzy. It's strictly transactional, right over the body. That's what it is. was heavily shaped by historical understandings of concupiscence. You know what? We only understood concupiscence historically way back then because we didn't really know what it was. But we know so much more now about what concupiscence is. Modern Catholic teachings. What? Modern Catholic teachings. What? Hey, wasn't Aquinas's deal a modern Catholic teaching at one time? Okay, modern Catholic teachings, such as those from Pius XI and St. John Paul II. This is AI talking because it's politically correct. It cannot admit the church changed because then their house of cards fall. The church never changes, but the people in it do, okay? So now they're saying Pius XI and John Paul II have broadened this view. No, they haven't broadened a view. Okay, maybe they have broadened a view, but that doesn't literally, if I've broadened the view of my cell phone, does that mean this thing has changed? Or is this strictly a transactional deal when I go to T-Mobile store and say, I want this thing? Strictly transactional. No matter how broad their view is or how broad my view is, we're buying this. The view doesn't matter legally, but they act as though it does. That's the problem. Today, the marital debt is understood to encompass unitive and interpersonal love. Sounds like something Timothy Gordon would say, except he can't admit that. Because then he's like, wait a minute. If it didn't encompass unitive and impersonal love once upon a time, how come it does now? And who put it there? And how are they? This is nature. It's in the Bible, right? Can't do that. Alongside procreation. Oh, okay. So we have a new telos. It's encompassing this. Did it not encompass before? We didn't understand that love was encompassed by procreation, but now it is. Abstinence during fasting seasons until viewed as a salutary spiritual discipline, but it relies on mutual agreement between the spouses. Abstinence during the fasting season. Okay. Whatever. Okay. This is objection. Yeah. So the bad guys say this. Hey, okay, we don't need all the objections. We can read it. It doesn't matter. Let's go to, I just like to read what he says, the reply to objection 2. I guess let's look at objection 2 first. Not only do they consider he who knowingly asks for the debt from a menstruous woman sins mortally. Because, look, you were going to get put to death. Romans 1:12. This is like life and death stuff, all right? It would seem that a menstruous wife may not pay the marriage debt to her husband because it is written in Leviticus that if any man approaches a menstruous woman, both shall be put to death. Doesn't sound good. That's serious stuff. Okay, it's the same God. Therefore, it would seem that both he who asks and she who grants are guilty of mortal sin. Wouldn't it seem that way? What does Aquinas say? So I think Timothy Gordon's got to be really careful when he starts saying, hey, everything's good as long as you're not conscious. No. Because of procreation primary, this everything's not good. This refers to the case. Reply to objection 1. This refers to the case when both willingly consent. Wow. But not when the woman pays the debt by force, as it were. There's a politically incorrect statement. So look, mortal sin when both consent at menstruation. Where have you heard that before? Nowhere. Wow. It's like, man, Timothy Gordon, what's up? You got to get with the Aquinas here. And why does he say this? It wasn't the black fast, dude. It was because Leviticus said no for 2 reasons. Ceremonial, and that's gone in the Old Testament, but the New Testament still exists for moral reasons because it's procreation primary, and it is manifest infertility during menstruation. Manifest infertility. Therefore, if you go for it at that time, you're saying, forget the infertility, forget God. Boom. Nobody says this anymore, nor are you allowed to say this because now you are saying that if we're avoiding procreation, that's mortal sin. What about NFP? Oh, conversation over. Got to go. We're just going to talk about a lot of other words and a lot of significances and meanings and stuff and just move on because we know so much more now. Brutal. Objection 2. Further, not only... Okay, so look... When they both willingly consent, but not when the woman pays the debt by force. That means that, That debt, law is a force. Like when the cop says 25 miles an hour or step out of the car. You know what I mean? The person can comply or they should be forced. Now, God's going to force you in the end if you don't. But hello. It's like, and even the church law, it's because it's legal. It's a legal matter. But this refers to cases of both. Yeah. Further, not only they that do not, wait, let's just read this slower. Further, not only they that do them, but they also that consent to them are worthy of death. Serious stuff here. All this like conjugal act, more conjugal act, the holier you get, you can die from it morally. Now he who knowingly asks for the debt from a menstruous woman sins mortally. Okay, this is the objection. Therefore also sins mortally by consenting to pay the debt. What does Aquinas say to that? Because that's not right. What does he say? Since there is no consent without the concurrence of the will, the woman is not deemed to consent to her husband's sin unless she pay the debt. Willingly. So again, the same with Casti Connubii 59. If the person is coming at you with sin, then, and they're not even talking about contraception is never allowed, but if they're coming at you with NFP or onanism, don't consent. You have to let them know you disagree with this, but you can still allow it, but you have to call it a sin. For when she is unwilling, let me fix that. For when she is unwilling, she is passive rather than consenting. Okay, that's exactly what I put Casti Connubii. Holy Church knows well that when, not infrequently, one of the parties is sinned against rather than sinning. That's exactly what they're talking about here. For example, yeah, if she knows it's menstruation time and the husband's like, hey, okay, for grave cause, he or she reluctantly allows the perversion of the right order. There you go. The husband's like, I got serious remedy of concupiscence, whatever, you know what I mean? And she's like, hey, this isn't cool. This is sin because there's going to be no procreation. In such case, there is no sin, provided that, mindful of the law of charity, he or she is not to neglect to dissuade the other, to deter the partner from sin. So Aquinas does explain that everyone has the right to concupiscence, but not at that point. I guess I have to look into this a little bit further, but it sounds like he's saying, look, it's just objective sin during the menstruation. No, but if you let your partner, let your spouse know, that's where Casti 59 comes in. Aquinas also says, since the wife has power over her husband's body and vice versa, with regard to the act of procreation, okay, notice it says body and it doesn't say soul, spirit, or self. Husbands, it doesn't say power over the husband's self. The one is bound to pay the debt to the other at any season or hour. Even during, you have to pay the debt. If so someone says you got to pay this debt, you got to do it. You can say it's a sin to do it this time, but with due regard to the decorum required in such manners. So that's all you need. You just need due regard for the decorum. No, yeah, like not at Walmart. Nowadays it probably would. For this must not be done at once openly. Duh. Unless you're at Pride Month in Frisco. That's gross. How would the marital act violate the natural law? How would the marital act... Okay, let's go back to the video and continue with what Tim was saying.
Yeah, thanks, John.
How would fornication or adultery in part not violate the natural law, which Aquinas says it doesn't, right? It's a natural vice. Largely not violate the natural law. He says in one way it does, in one way it doesn't. But the marital sexual act, which is both unitive and procreative.
We still got to get this down a little bit, but we'll go to the notes in a minute.
Which doesn't violate any principle of nature. How would it violate the natural law when even a contracepted, well, not a contraceptive, but a fornicative act doesn't? That's something you have to think about.
A fornicative act violates natural law because it doesn't have the goods, namely the education of children. That's why. Let's look at what Aquinas says about this right now. Okay. Here's what Tim just asked. How would the marital act violate the natural law when even a fornicative act doesn't? A fornicative act does violate the natural law, Tim, like I said, because it is the act without the goods. All you're doing is creating more original sin. So fornication violates nature because there's no goods there. There's not enough goods there, put it that way. You're creating bad children. You're creating hellspawn. So Aquinas, the intercourse of fornication and that of marriage are the same species as regards to the species of nature. So this is Tim's problem, though. He thinks the conjugal act is good on itself. It's not. It's evil on itself, like fornication is on itself. Where do I get this? It's common sense, but also if you listen to Aquinas. The marriage act differs not from fornication except by the marriage goods. Ding, ding, ding. That's what I just said. If, therefore, these were not sufficient to excuse it, marriage would always be unlawful. Marriage would just be fornication, but the goods excuse the acts. So the conjugal act for itself, Tim, ain't no. It's got to be for the goods, procreation, education within marriage, because you have to have permanence, okay, and exclusivity. That's what unity is. That's all that unity is no affair. That's all it is. It's exclusivity. So the marriage act from fornication is the same. And unless you have the goods, it's the same. It's going to be evil. Now, a human act is said to be good in two ways. One by way of the goodness of the virtue, and thus the act derives its goodness from those things which place it in the mean. This is what exclusivity and offspring do in a marriage act. That's what I just said, as stated above. In another way, by goodness of the sacrament, in which the act is said to be not only good, but also holy. The marriage act derives this goodness from the indissolubility of the union, the contract, in respect of which it signifies the union of Christ with the church. It signifies. That's right. And if you look at Humanae Vitae, all they talk about is the significance, but they don't talk about the goods, only the significance. This is why NFP, and this is why vasectomy and castration do not violate the moral principles which we have just described in Humanae Vitae, because those principles only speak of the significance. Christ and his church, husband and wife, coming together. What happens there? You know what I'm saying? It's like as long as the sign is there, no, you have to have the nature there too. We have disconnected nature in order to accommodate NFP, and that's where all the confusion is. But everyone wants their NFP so much and everything that goes with it. You know, women can work. They don't have to have a bunch of kids. You can get an annulment. Divorce is not a sin. Priests can be gay. Trans, all this stuff. Women priests. Everyone wants a piece of whatever it comes with NFP, so you can't get rid of. It's very hard to get rid of. Thus, it is clear that the aforesaid goods, procreation, education, with exclusivity and permanence, sufficiently excuse the marriage act, Tim. You got to have the goods. They're not automatically. Otherwise, every marriage act would be good because the goods would always be there. But the marriage act is evil without the goods, Tim. Like fornication is evil because it has no goods. Further, the aforesaid act does not differ from the act of fornication except in the aforesaid goods. So I just said. But the act of fornication is always evil, and that is because there's no goods with it. It's just horse and mule instinct stuff, right? There's no education of children with that. Therefore, the marriage act, Tim, check this out. I don't know if you've read this before. I hope you have. Therefore, the marriage act also will always be evil, unless it is excused by the aforesaid goods. I was always like, what are the aforesaid goods? Procreation, education with permanence, and exclusivity. If you're not doing that, the Marriage Act is evil if you don't have that. Tim says that the Marriage Act will always be good unless it is artificially contraceptive. Therefore, natural fornication becomes as plausible as gay marriage. Yeah, because hey, if you don't have to pursue procreation, right? This is a bit of a stretch, I guess, but it is true. Hang on a sec. Tim says the Marriage Act will always be good unless it is artificially contraceptive. So if the Marriage Act is always good, no matter what telos you're shooting for, you know, which target you're aiming for, if you're aiming just for something other than procreation, then natural fornication, if you're not aiming for procreation, then, cool. Then fornication is fine. Then if you're not aiming for procreation, anything that then nature is up for grabs, homo, etc. This is why the gay marriage thing took off in the advent of contraception and then NFP. Because if the Catholic Church is saying nature isn't procreation for a telos, then whatever you want is nature. Consequently, this is more Aquinas. Consequently, there are only two ways in which married persons can come together without any sin at all. Namely, in order to have offspring and in order to pay the debt. Otherwise, it is always at least a venial sin. I'm going to think about this because this gets a little bit adjusted by Alphonsus. Hold on a second. Okay, so I think I got this figured out. There's only two ways married persons can come together without any sin at all. In order to have so you're the agent, you're trying to have offspring, or if you are responding to someone who requests the debt, you're like, no sin on my part, I'm just paying the debt. In other words, you have to treat the conjugal act very carefully because it's death if it's not done right, if you're not doing it for procreation. This is why contraception killed Onan, because he wasn't doing the conjugal act is not good in itself. It's evil in itself, like fornication, unless excused. It's like you have to flip it all. Right now, we have it totally backwards because if unity is if the Marriage Act is all about unity, then it's not all about procreation. It's one or the other. Anyway, so it's at least a venial sin if you're not trying to have offspring or you're not paying the debt. But you can argue that it is about offspring as long as you are not, if you have remedy of concupiscence, you can't say that pursuing remedy of concupiscence is venial sin necessarily. But if it's pleasure alone, in other words, the telos always has to be in place. And if you are using a method to change your telos, then you're not trying to, in order to have offspring. It's not in order. It's not, so it doesn't necessarily have to be in your brain. It has to be habitual, or the order is such offspring. Family planning is not ordered to offspring. Okay? This is why it's death to family plan. And the Pope is saying it's not death. This is crazy stuff. This is a crazy time we live in. Okay? This is like big time important. That's why people are like, why are you always talking about this? Because it's a salvation issue. That's why. And also, civilization kind of depends on getting this right. All right? Don't get me started on that. There's more I could say about that, but I guess that's enough for now. It's always a venial sin. Yeah, so, but we know it's looks like it's grave sin if it's during menstruation, man. It's just like NFP. Yeah. I don't see how you could get around that. I really don't. That's just like what it is. All right, let's keep going let's keep going on the video. Just a minute. Let's see what we got here. Go, Tim, go.
John, I'm having a hard time finding you on the YouTube thing. Try to make a comment on the channel, and maybe that'll.
Yeah, she did unblock me on YouTube. That's totally cool. Now we're getting some traction.
Okay, so next to this.
Not everything that violates the moral law is a violation of the natural law.
Not everything that violates the moral law is a violation of the natural law. That's true. Okay.
Right? There are natural vices that are mortal sins or whatever. And I'm not even conceding that sex during menses is a violation of the natural law
because why, Tim? After we just read Aquinas that says it violates the telos. That's why. Just like Onan violated the telos, man. He did. That's why.
church is taught it's not, clearly. But I'm conceding that sex during menses is a violation of the natural law because the church is taught it's not, clearly. But I'm just saying there are
clearly church violation of the natural law. Yeah, I guess it's not a violation of the natural law, but it's a violation of that's a tricky one, really, to nail down exactly. It is death. You're not pursuing procreation, and it's in Leviticus, like I said, and Aquinas says it's part of the new thing. I can't figure out if that. I don't think it would be against natural law, but it's against telos, procreation.
some things that are actually sins that are not unnatural vices.
Okay. Next to the show, we have Raz. I'm going to add you in.
All right. Let me find the next clip here. Just a minute. Okay. Remember we talked about marriage as not a vocation. It's because it's nature. However, the people behind me here on the crucifix are all about vocation. And USCCB says, look, you got the priesthood vocation, holy orders vocation, and then you have the marriage vocation because it's all about love and it's about total gift of self. You can give yourself to God in the priesthood, or you can give yourself to your spouse. It's all a vocation. Let's see what Tim says. I think he kind of straddles things a little bit.
Most people can't get all 7 sacraments, which you understand. And we would say that's not a sacramental vocation, which is why it's not a sacrament. I just use the terms interchangeably. Whereas when you're called to be married and a Catholic, it bumps up to the level of a sacramental vocation. Now,
what's a sacramental vocation? Bumps up. It just you're just married in the church, and I guess you have to honor that contract. But marriage is still the same. It's just not a vocation. But you could argue it's a high. You got a Catholic marriage has different. A different level. It's just kind of a different animal in some ways. I shouldn't say that because it's the same animal as a natural marriage, but there's more requirements as far as charity and stuff.
It's the nature of the calling. It's a little different for everybody, and I'm perfectly willing to concede that it's less explicit than the calling to priesthood, but I still think it rises to the level of a sacramental calling.
Sacrament. That's just kind of a little more wordplay. A sacramental calling. Well, Catholics just are going to the sacraments. They're not necessarily called. Okay, whatever. It's just it's like I think it's a little bit of playing both sides here, but not a hill to die on.
I see.
Is that fair?
I think so.
Cool, man. Well, DM me on X.
Is there more? I think I got more here from
what's your handle on X? So I'll know to look out for it.
Oh, I don't have one. I have to make one.
Oh, okay. Well, just write me an email or something, TimothyJGordon@timothyjgordon.com, and we'll.
Okay, we got to get to the divorce part.
Questions. Yeah, you too, bro. Take care.
Thanks, Reddy. Thanks so much. Okay, next to the show, we're going to have Micah.
All right, hold on. Everyone's calling me. Just a minute. Yo, Oscar. Okay, so now Tim starts getting into divorce, and this we're going to show how his goofed up NFP stuff affects divorce law.
The more capacious exemption. Well, it's adult because we're really dealing with divorce and remarriage.
That's another way of saying this is what you hear all the time. It's not divorce that's the problem, but it's the remarriage without an annulment. This is what people say all the time, and that's not right at all. But because now everything is personal, total gift of self and everything, there's no more marriage law. Therefore, there's no more contract law. There's no way to define marriage because the telos of marriage is like these people. It's just love. So it's between them and God, and we're not going to judge whose fault it is when there's a separation. Therefore, divorce is not a sin. It's the remarriage part because that breaks the sign. A, But if it's all love, Pope Francis says, then who are we to judge? That's why if you can allow private divorce, you can allow private adultery. It's just logical.
First off, put that out of your mind. Divorce, it's a serious problem, but you can go to confess. I don't know if people understand the way that like action theory plays out with the.
Here's more action. See, you don't understand action theory. If you understood action theory, then you could get this, all right? Because I'm an action theorist. Woo! I don't even know if I'm an inaction theorist or a sloth theorist or what I am, right? A Jack Daniels theorist? I don't know, but I do know that divorce is a sin objectively, every single one, because they all violate nature. But now nature isn't definable. So, hey, it's private.
The sacrament of confession.
So he just said you can divorce and then go to confession. That's the same thing he's saying with vasectomy now. You can get a vasectomy and then go to confession. And then what? Use your vasectomy. But Tim says you can't. He's got no basis to say that because as long as the telos is there, you're trying, you're like, hey, I'm open to life and I'm not doing anything, whatever. See, this is why any Catholic bishop in the USA will say, if you have a vasectomy and you're really sorry, you can get married and you can use your vasectomy in marriage and you're open to life. And because there's no more contract for the right over the body, it's the right to self. And the self is more than biology, right? In fact, biology is a side note. Oh, let's look what Tim said. I think I wrote it down in the comments here. Okay. It's a serious problem. Divorce is, well, yeah, that's an understatement, but you can go to confession. I don't know if people understand the way that like action theory plays out with the sacrament of confession. How does action theory play out? What if action theory doesn't? What is action theory? Who cares? One can go to confession for this mortal sin of a one-time divorce. Okay, divorce isn't one time. Sort of like stealing a car isn't one time if you keep the car and the owner's like, hey, I need my car back. Or let's just say you kidnap somebody and it's a one-time kidnapping. So you take somebody's 10-year-old daughter and you're keeping him in the basement and, you're, who knows what you're doing down there with them. And that's a one-time kidnapping, but you're not giving the kid back to the parents because it's you confessed it, but the kid's still down there. No. Mortal sin of one-time divorce or just being, cohabiting. Hang on, let's listen to more what he had to say. Sorry about that. I talked too much. Hold on.
One can go to confession for this mortal sin of a one-time divorce or just being, cohabiting, ceasing to cohabit under the same.
Ceasing to cohabit under this. Okay. So yeah, you have to cease to, if you're going to confess shacking up, you can't maintain shacking up. Unless you read the fine print of Amoris Laetitia and the footnotes. No, you can't maintain shacking up.
Same roof as the spouse you're not getting along with. The real
problem
is
hold on, back up.
And in both divorce or just being, cohabiting, ceasing to cohabit under the same roof as the spouse you're not getting along with. The real problem is remarriage. And in
Tim, buddy, you got a problem. No, the real problem is your understanding on this because divorce is a grave offense. Wait, I think I wrote down his exact words because we got to get, this is big. Okay. Yeah. One can go to confession for this mortal sin of one-time divorce, or just being, cohabiting, ceasing to cohabit under the same roof as your spouse you're not getting along with. The real problem is remarriage. So if you go to confession for abandoning, ceasing to cohabit. So you can practice marital abandonment and go to confession. And then you get to continue with your abandonment. No. This is the violation of nature. Matthew 19:9. You let God know what God has joined, let no man put asunder. You don't get to put them away. Ceasing to cohabit is what's known as putting away in the Bible. You don't get to do that unless they're at fault. And if they're at fault, you're the innocent party. But the bishop has to judge everything. You don't get to judge it. Once upon a time, before like Trent and, 1,000 years ago, the weddings were private. They were just like between you and me, we could get married. So you don't have to go to the bishop, but now you do. Okay, the real problem is remarriage. While we're on here, let's keep reading about this. Separation without remarriage. Like this is a little AI here. Tertullian, Augustine, and Jerome argued that the clause allowed for a legitimate separation due to unfaithfulness, but expressly forbade either party from marrying someone else. Yes, legitimate separation due for unfaithfulness. Due for what? Unfaithfulness, or anything that makes living together unduly difficult. Heresy or whatever. As I always say, communicating with a 9-iron, that kind of stuff. The wife, therefore, is not to be dismissed except for fornication. That's an exception clause, Tim. You can't dismiss except for fornication. And if you do, you got to get it approved by the bishop. And Timothy Gordon would agree you have to have the bishop's permission. But I don't think he understands that this is divine law. And it's natural law that you live together. And unless there's guilt, you have to live together. And this is, you cannot, if you're still breathing, you still need to live together. So if you commit the sin of leaving without bishop's permission, without the cause, without cause, you have to go back home. You have to resume conjugal living, or you cannot get absolution. This is why divorce was always known as, they go, I'm not excommunicated. You're not excommunicated for divorce, but you are removed from the sacraments. You have no eligibility for the sacraments if you divorce. What do I mean by that word divorce? I'll get there. There's 4 different ways to define divorce in the Bible. So just hold on. But neither is she to be taken again if she has been dismissed, because the bond of marriage remains. Duh. Yeah, that's right. So you have the bond and you have the contract. Okay? 2 different things. The Lord, therefore, has permitted a wife to be put away for the cause of fornication, but he has not permitted her to marry again while the husband lives. You can separate, but you can't separate on your own authority anymore. As of ever since like the 1100s, or when the governance of marriage started becoming taken over by the church. You don't get to put away your wife unless the bishop gives you permission, and it must be guilt. And this is Matthew 19:9, but I've done all videos on that. Now Matthew 19:9 exception clause, they call it for invalidity and not adult. Because there's no contract, so there's no exception. You don't need an exception to separate. Look, if these people here aren't getting along really good, there's just not enough love, and we can back out because there's no contract, because love has no terms. All right. His reasoning is that Matthew 19:9 does not mean whoever divorces his wife except for fornication and marries another commits no adultery. That's right. That's correct. That's not what it means. This is important too. This is Malachi 2:16. When thou shalt hate her, put her away. So all you divorce hates, or God hates divorce people, no. That's Protestant. I've said it a zillion times. When you hate your spouse, you put her away, says the Lord God of it. But iniquity shall cover your garment. How should I put that in today's terms? When you file for divorce on your own authority, you publicly hate your spouse, you can't access the sacraments. Because you are covered in iniquity. Because of what you did, you violated nature. Every single one of you. Doesn't matter how great your cause was, if you divorce, and that means on your own authority today, because only the bishop can allow it. Wait a minute. Okay, I'm getting to that different kinds of divorce. So let's go. We'll come back to this. Let's watch a little more of the video here and see what he says.
Both passages, Matthew and Mark, Jesus addresses it. Now, the large capacious exemption in Matthew versus the Markan lack of exception, where he carte blanche condemns all divorce and remarriage, has to be dealt with by the speculative intellect, I think, in the most conservative means possible. And so going through the patristics, they all are a little bit befuddled here. Anyone that reads the Gospel is honest.
The patristics are a little bit befuddled. Oh, why did I just read all these patristics? St. Augustine is not befuddled. None of them are. Everyone knew the exception clause was for fornication, adultery. Everybody knew it until 1965. Why is that, John? Because the contract disappeared. It turned into a love compact. Like these people behind me have their love compact, aka love contract. No terms. So there's no exception because there's no terms to have an exception of. You know what I mean? So if you have no boundaries to your property line, you cannot accuse me of trespassing. Nor is there an exception to trespass because trespassing is impossible. I'm going to ask this question to Timothy Gordon someday about marital rape. We'll say that for another. There's so much I could talk about. By the way, he did another video, and I got to say some stuff. This is going to take way too long, so I got to do another video. I am moving out of my house tomorrow morning. I'm taking the dog, the puppies to be, everybody, and we're gone. So I got to finish this video, and we'll make a new one down there. All right, hold on. Keep going, Tim.
Can be a little bit befuddled, but I think you err on the side of caution. I think it shakes out that simply, where if someone really hates his spouse or someone really hates her husband, you can not cohabit.
Really? Tim? Oh, why did I just read that? Of course, do we need to go over this again? If somebody really hates their spouse, you could not cohabit. You can. And then guess what happens, Tim? Iniquity. You know what happens when your iniquity covers your garment? You go to hell, Tim. That's right. Okay? You told me, Tim, that you got to get dogmatic, or you got to be adamant if it's right and wrong. Like, what if you said if it's stuff about the faith, okay? Tim, get it straight. You got to get your Dewey Reams out and stop all this New American Bible stuff or whatever the heck you got going on. It's the NFP, stupid. This is what the problem is. Once you say NFP is nature, law disappears. And you can put away because you're not transgressing anything. It's like if you swing your fist in the air, it doesn't matter. But if there's a policeman 7 inches from you and you do it, it does matter. So it kind of, you see what I mean? It's like it matters what nature is in front of you. And this is why marriage is an office of nature. You violate it. Excuse me. All right, back to el video. That's Spanish for the video.
The big question is people don't want to live celibately.
The big question. No, that's not a big question, because he's basically saying people want to continue doing some sort of conjugal act with somebody else. So that's what really matters. Tim, there's a marriage contract. The marriage is the contract itself. When you have NFP, you have no contract. And when you have no contract, you have no marital debt because there's no terms. It just becomes a broader aspect. We know so much more now, Tim. We know. We really do. Yeah.
That's the big question. And so I just tell people, and this kind of covers what you said about annulments as well, because we went from having about 300 in the whole world to having 90,000 in the US or something in the early 90s. It's a joke just because they tweaked something so that they got this tremendous other output.
Yeah, they tweaked something. The something they tweaked was more than biology. Something they tweaked was they found the loophole which NFP created. That loophole was the purpose of marriage is what these people are doing. It's love. And when you have love as the purpose, love is without boundaries and without definition. It's total, isn't it? Therefore, no one can measure up. Therefore, when things don't work out, the marriage is invalid because someone wasn't capable of total love. Otherwise, they wouldn't have broken up. See? So Stephanie could get a wild hair someday, Tim, and take your expansive fortune and your kids and get somebody who's not such a knucklehead like you. And you're out. And then the marriage is invalid because you're abusive. I can tell you're abusive. Everyone knows you're abusive, right? Right? Hello? It's if she says so, and the tribunal will agree because you're less than perfect, Tim.
And you got several, tens of thousands of precipitous spike in the amount of annulments that are granted each year. I don't believe that either. I think if people err on the side of caution, they say our Lord was recounted by 2 of the 4 evangelists as teaching you can't get divorced and remarried In one case, he says, except this subclass of this.
This subclass? Yeah, it's in the Bible, and that subclass is you can't separate unless fault. That's where fault-based comes from. No fault is against Scripture. It's against the Bible. It's against God. All Catholics are no fault today because NFP says there's no parental fault. There's no contract, so there's no fault. Like I said, if there's nobody in front of me, I can swing my fist as hard as I want because there's no fault, because there's nothing there.
Venn diagram. If there's some porneia problem, then it's exempted. And the second time, it's not exempted. You have to, because it's a matter of heaven and hell.
If there's a porneia problem, it's exempted. That's another way of saying, yeah, you can separate for adultery, but not on your own authority anymore. And if you do, iniquity covers your garment. It's called public sin, manifest sin. That's what's going on, Tim. This is part of why I've been kind of trying to get your attention for a long time, because you're like one dude who could maybe, if you could sort of catch on to this, but you have to you cannot hold on to your NFP and say what I'm saying. You can't, it won't work, cannot work. And who wants to let go of their NFP? Nobody, because your name is Mud. Okay.
You have to err on the side of the stricter interpretation, the Markan interpretation. I think it shakes out that simply. And, thanks for the question. I don't have a more technical answer than that. I think it's the only way people can proceed. You're not going to get, I know the patricians stressed over it. I understand why.
I guess I kind of would just respond to that by saying, well, Mark is supposed to be the first gospel, right?
All right, hold on a second. Let's check out our notes and see if we got anything we're missing. All right. Pauline privilege. Why are we bringing this up? I can't remember. Maybe they talk about it. It's a provision in the Catholic canon law allowing the dissolution of a marriage between two unbaptized persons. Derived from 1 Corinthians 7. Yes, it permits a newly baptized spouse to end the original marriage. Yeah. Very few people can get a poly. But and hey, if your unbaptized spouse doesn't want you to leave, you can't. You want a Pauline privilege? It's when someone says, get the heck out of here. I can't handle any baptism. Yeah, Pauline privilege, no prior baptism. Okay. One conversion, one departure, formal question. The unbaptized spouse must officially be asked if they want to be baptized. If they're willing to live peacefully. No fault. The baptized party cannot be the cause of the separation after their baptism. Isn't that interesting? Because it's like if I go up to somebody and hit him in the head with a brick and then say, hey, this person is really mean to me. I can't expect, because look, I'm the one who first did it. So if somebody wants out of their unbaptized marriage, they're going, I'll get baptized, and then I can say later, because I want out of this marriage. You can't be the cause of the separation, so you can't use it. In other words, this is what's going on today with annulments. They'll say, look, see this thing behind me? See all our love deal we got going on? It's not working. Because why? I've been doing everything possible to make this person really despise me, man. And you know what? Now they're acting up or whatever. Just like I come up to you and throw a brick at your head and you start acting up. I'm like, see, it's all your fault. Okay? Actually, I was the one who caused it. So if I go in here and start trashing the relationship and then someone says, then I say, look how you're treating me, I'm out of here. This is why you have to have a separation decree. You have to have fault. Otherwise, anyone can wreck the interpersonal dialogue intentionally, then say, see, you're not capable. Like I say, I come up to you with a nice brick, whack you in the nose with it and say, you're incapable of love. Look at the way you're treating me. You're yelling at me and you're not being the slightest bit unitive at all. You're incapable. No one can see that I just whacked you in the head with a brick, but they see the way you're acting, okay? So this is why there must be a trial. So you go to the law, you say, why are you yelling and screaming all the time? Why can't you be unitive? Well, because he broke my nose with a brick, that's why. Really, did you do that? Oh, yeah, I guess I did. You don't get to use that. You can't. This is why in justice, if you want a Pauline privilege, annulment, you can't be the cause of the separation. It's the other person. So if you get baptized, you don't automatically get to leave if the other person says, I don't want you to leave. But if they say, yeah, go ahead, then yeah. Okay, so let's go to the 58-minute mark. Hang on. I didn't even switch over. Oh, well, 58-minute mark.
And then if we go with, right, yeah, back and forth. But if Mark says it and then like Jesus later then clarifies it.
Chronology of the four Gospels, I still believe Matthew's the earliest. Matthew, then Mark, then Luke, then John. But yeah, in some cases, Mark is earlier. I don't think that the principle of abrogation is the safe or cautious or even the correct way to read. Got married,
mark.
And
hang on, here we go.
You just have to vow for celibacy. If you got married, because we can't really trust annulments, particularly in our day.
No,
if you got
can't.
Married and your spouse didn't die, then you just shouldn't get married again. So I would say that's the left to the practical intellect. I just think that's the only way that I would handle it. If
your spouse didn't die, you have to reconcile. You have to reconcile,
whether or not.
And if you can't, you have to get a bishop's permission to not.
Okay, we're going to add Julian in. I think you know Julian. He got kicked off. His Wi-Fi got kicked off, so he got sent to the end, and we're going to add him in now. Let me add you in, Julian.
Julian?
Hi, Julian.
Let me make sure I got the right thing going on. Just a minute.
What's up?
Okay, let's see what he talks about now.
Adi Amari pretty old. Adi Amari is pretty old too. That one's funky.
Yeah. No, man. Look, we got no beef. You and I, brother. Hey, you seem like a cool dude.
Cool dude, man.
I like how much you know about liturgy.
Tim,
that's just impressive. But you got anything else for me? Yeah, we're good. We're all good.
No, that was it. All right,
yeah, thanks for listening. And I just keep thinking, what a cool listenership this is. You guys know
152.30. Am I in the right
so
place?
much about cool, different stuff. So
yeah.
Next super chat. Anthony Diaz says, why are Christians so vocal against the sins of homos and baby murderers to the point of organizing against their causes, but not as vocal to those other sins like gluttony, sloth, or divorce?
Well, hierarchy in all things. Divorce is a recent leniency since the church.
Divorce is a recent leniency. No, it's not. You can't. It's in the Bible. You can't. There is no recent leniency on divorce. There's a Vatican II interpretation all of a sudden that turns the exception clause into invalidity clause. It's wrong. Everyone does it today. You can't change scripture, but they do it.
Church decided to open up the windows in the 60s, which really meant the 70s. But we've been traditionally really, really aggressive against remarried divorcees. And many people today that are boomer aged or older who were practicing Catholics before the council were all but excommunicated in a equivocal sense from their local community, the local church. So that's a recent bias. There's recency bias built into your claim there.
Okay. He just said boomers effectively were all but excommunicated. That is true. You are banned from the sacraments if you divorce without the bishop. And you still are today, but no one talks about it. But that's true. Okay.
And, gluttony, this is a very private sin. It doesn't scandalize as much. Gluttony by its nature almost is always anti-scandalizing because fat people look so bad. I can't talk about this enough. You listen to Nick Fuentes and he'll talk about, look, we have to stop doing this.
We find the next spot. Hang on. Okay, I found a little soundbite here. Go ahead, Tim.
That the church goes hard against. And we should go harder against divorce.
How should we go harder against divorce, Tim? What do you suggest? What do you propose? How do you go hard against divorce? When these two people behind me, one of them files for divorce, how do you plan to go hard on them? Are you going to deny communion? Because if you're not, what are you going to do? How do you plan? That's all there is sacraments. Police can lock you up, but the bishop can deny sacraments and put you in hell. That's what he can do. Now, if you're not going to deny sacraments, there's nothing you can do. You can shame them or something, but what? Hey, are you going to judge them? Are you going to judge fault? And if so, what are you going to do if they say, yeah, I don't care about your judgment of fault because divorce is a civil matter and bishop has no say in my decision to separate. Like you said, Tim, if I hate my spouse, I can separate. That's what you said. So how, if I hate my neighbor, I can burn their house down. What's the problem? How are we going to go harder against hate-filled arson, Tim? It's called arrest. And then if you go hard against divorce, it's called deny sacraments. If you put me in charge of marriage prep in any diocese, the divorce rate's going to plummet immediately. And I just got to talk the bishop into denying sacraments. That's all. That's all. It's guaranteed, man.
And gluttony is its own punishment, man. Because you look like hell when you have that.
Your body revolts too.
Your body revolts.
High blood pressure. All these diseases that your body just is like it's rebelling against you.
Helen of Troy will look terrible fat, right? Or even a little chubby. There's just nobody looks good chubby. Or nobody looks good fat. Nobody even looks good chubby. So it's just, and your body revolts against you. You get acid reflux, sleep apnea, halitosis.
Yeah. He followed up. Anthony Diaz followed up and with another super chat and said, I know the first two sins I said are always mortal, but the latter are much more rampant and also can be mortal. Yeah,
that's true. I'm just saying when there's a natural like adequation via sort of self-punishment of the act, the antecedent act, when there's a consequence punishment that sort of carries all the time, like gluttony, in this everyone wants to look good on the internet and off the internet, then gluttony's just not one of those ones that the church really has to go too hard against, even if it's a sin.
Let me find it just a minute.
Because
so that was really the end of the video on Tim, and I'm going to follow up with what he says about we should go harder on divorce. Timothy Gordon, like I say, how do you plan to go harder on divorce? What's the plan, Tim? Give me some info. What are you going to do about it, Tim? What do you recommend? I'm all ears. I'm going to have to ask him that. We should go harder against divorce. How so? I have the answer. If you want to ask me, I know exactly what it is, and it's what we always did before 1950. That's what we do. I'll write it out for you if you want, but it's deny sacraments. That's how you go harder. You deny sacraments when they separate without the bishop. Simple as that. Now, I told you I would talk about this. What is divorce? And there's 4 different names for it. We're going to go through 2 of them. This is an important part for Leila Miller. Anybody know Leila Miller? I'm sure you do. Leila Miller has annulment-proof derangement syndrome. She can't look at me, talk about it, anything. She just freaks out when she hears about me or sees me or anything. That's too bad because it's not me. It's because I'm saying stuff that exposes her as being part of Catholic Inc., because she's kind of theology of the body and stuff. And she gets the catechism wrong on the divorce. So let's go over it right now. This is really important. And this is something I asked my priest about in another video when I met with Father Nagel over at St. Monica's. I said, look, 2384 in the catechism. Let's read about what it says about divorce. Divorce is a grave offense against the natural law. Sounds good. What divorce is a grave offense against natural law. You can, in Casti Connubii 54, I think it says no reason, however grave, can one violate natural law and call it in accord with nature. So no matter how grave your reason for divorce, you can't do it. Well, what is divorce? Because in 2383 it says divorce can be legitimate in certain cases. If civil divorce remains the only possible way. So it's against nature, and we can never violate nature, but you can for a grave cause. So in one sense, we have the church, which says in Casti Connubii, you can never violate nature even for grave cause. Nothing. No sodomy for grave cause. No family planning for grave cause, nothing for grave cause because it violates nature. Except you can now for grave cause, right? So if you can divorce for grave cause, you can contracept for grave cause. You can do sodomy you can do anything for grave cause because whatever violates nature, it's cool because the church says you can, right? Wrong. We have to define the word divorce as it's used. It's used 2 different ways. As I said, we have, let me see what's in my pocket. Do I have the money? Okay, here, look. $5 bill. This is a $5 bill, and this is a $5 bill. This signifies $5, okay? So I can actually buy something with this, no matter what anyone feels. But to me, this signifies the deep meaning of $5, so they're interchangeable, right? Right? This is a $5 bill, and this is a $5 bill. So there's no difference. Yes, there is, and it depends on the definition of these things. Okay, this is divorce and this is divorce. Is there a difference? Yes. What the heck are you talking about? I'll show you right now. So the Bible uses 4 different words for divorce, and they each mean a different kind of separation. So we got to get it correct. So divorce is apolio, or whatever the heck. That's the separation with the bond remaining based in law. Based in what? In love? No, in law. Matthew 19:9. So if you separate in law, it's fine. But illegitimate separation is a violation of nature. So if you hate your spouse and put them away, that's illegitimate separation. Or you do. Everyone who puts away their spouse hates them. Every single one who puts away their spouse hates them publicly. Unless they're at fault. Publicly, which means you have to have a public declaration, as in the public authority. And for baptized people, that's the bishop. For unbaptized people, that's the state. And the state's no fault, so it's really goofy for them. But look, we're baptized, so illegitimate divorce is a grave offense against natural law. What is illegitimate divorce? When you divorce without cause, no fault. But I have fault. Oh, really? Is it between you and him? Or does the bishop know? Oh, the bishop doesn't. He said it was okay. I can do it on my own. You can't. The bishop has no power to say you can separate on your own authority. None. He's not allowed to, because process, the Pope said, and the Bible says, grave cause, and the Pope governs all separations or anathema. It's in Trent, Canon 12. And it's in New Canon Law too. I've done lots of videos on that. Anyone have any questions, just go ahead. Hit me up. So this is, apoluo, or whatever in Greek. This is the divorce we're talking about in 2384, which is a violation of nature. If you do this, and you divorce not in law with the bishop, that's a grave offense against natural law. Because you, whoever you are, who are laying claim. You're taking the bishop's mitre and you're putting it on yourself. And you're saying, I am breaking the contract because I have authority. No, you don't. You're baptized. Authorities in the church. You can't marry outside of the church, nor can you separate outside of the church. You're claiming to break the contract, which you consented to live with each other till death. That is the contract you consented to. And it also means marital debt. You consented to it. You have to state, if you open your mouth and you say, I do, those words echo till you stop breathing. They echo for eternity, really, but they apply to you and you stop breathing. Okay, then it says divorce also. It says divorce does injury. Divorce also does injury to the covenant of salvation. So they throw the word covenant in here, but the covenant of salvation is Christ and his church. Sacramental marriage is a sign. Okay, look, where's that? What happened to that bill? Did it blow away? Anyway, I think I lost my $5 bill. Here's the $10 bill. So this is $10, and I can say this is a sign of $10, but it's not $10. It's just a sign. Okay, so this is the money. This is the contract. This is what I can pay the contract, but this is just a sign. So it can do damage to the sign. Okay, it does injury to the sign, but it doesn't do injury to the contract. This is the contract. I'm nervous about my $5. Let me push pause and find it just a minute. It was in my pocket. All right. So it says contracting a new union, even if it's blah, 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 adds gravity to the rupture. So there's a rupture that you had. You created a rupture. How did you create a rupture? By separating unlawfully. Illegitimate apoluo. Okay? That's the rupture. And you add to the rupture when you throw some adultery on top, okay? But that's not the problem. It's a problem. Just like, I don't know. You could, if you punch someone and knock them out, that's bad. But if you kill them on top of it, that adds injury. You're adding to it. Well, it's murder that's the problem. It's not knocking somebody out that's the problem. If you're really mad at somebody, you can just, Mama said, knock me out, like the song, right? That's how old I am. Some of you Gen Xers will know it. The remarried spouse is then in a situation of public and permanent. Yeah. The remarriage, public and permanent adultery. What situation are you in, Tim, if you divorce illegitimately, if you unlawfully separate? It's still public adultery. It's adultery covers all sorts of things. It's not just like I've said, it's not just the capital red letter A. It's anything against the marriage contract. Separation is adultery. In the Bible, Matthew 19:9, if you commit adultery, you can separate. And adultery is anything that makes married life unduly difficult. It's a type of adultery. Just like murder isn't necessarily cold-blooded murder of a physical body. Contraception is murder. You can murder with your tongue by what you say. Okay, it's all part of the fifth commandment stuff, right? Anger, you know what I mean? All right, now, again, 2383, the separation of spouses while with remaining marriage bond can be legitimate in certain cases, provided for by the bishop trial canon law. That's why I put that in there. Yes, you've got to get this canon law right, and no one does today. It's all, even the canon law commentary will say we just ignore it. We just ignore it. Because we can, and everyone does. You have to ignore canon law on separation because there's nothing to separate, because there's no contract, because there's no definition. There's just love. So, if civil divorce remains the only possible way, okay, like I said, we just found out that divorce is a violation of natural law, and Casti 54 says, you can never violate natural law, no matter how grave cause. But now it says, for a grave cause, you can. So what's going on, John? This is what Leila Miller gets wrong because she doesn't understand. She doesn't know there's a contract. She doesn't know what the contract is. She thinks, because she's theology of the body, so she thinks it's just like a bond or something. They are referring to a different kind of divorce. They're talking about apostasion, which is a different kind of divorce, which is also mentioned in the Bible. That's called civil divorce. This is a formal legal term for certificate of divorce. So you can get a certificate of divorce if it's the only way to protect the kids, because you need civil power to back up the moral choice to separate because of adultery or unduly difficult. When you get the bishop's permission to do this kind of divorce, apuolo, okay, the separation. So you can do this other kind of divorce if it's the only way. Okay, FYI, in the USA, this type of divorce is never needed. There's never a cause for divorce in any of the 50 states because you have legal separation available. And you're like, hey, okay, well, what about New Jersey? What about Texas? And a handful of other states, I think there's 5 total, that don't have civil divorce. How am I going to protect my kids against my abusive spouse and all this stuff? There's legal separation by another way. You can create terms. You say you can get separation, you can get support, you can get maintenance, you can get restraining orders and all that. No problem. You can do the whole thing, yet maintain the bond. And you need to do that with the state. And you don't have to do this. So it's never the only possible way, is my point. And if you do this apostasion, you are causing scandal. You don't have, and this is why anybody who files for divorce can't go to communion in the USA today. Anybody who files for divorce without the bishop can't go to communion. That's how you get tough on divorce, Tim. And that's the end of our show. And I'm going to be moving. It's going to be so exciting. Anyway, if you're not against NFP, you know what you are. You're not on the stinking team, so go out there and stay toxic.
Let it come back. Don't call it a comeback.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years, rocking my peers, putting suckers in fear, making the tears rain down like a monsoon. Listen to the bass, listen to the bass go boom. Explosion, overpowering, over the competition I'm towering. Wrecking shop when I drop these lyrics that'll make you call the